Chapter 979. The people here aren't afraid of evil spirits? Ha! There are plenty of evil spirits here. You should be more afraid of the president. Aduz chuckled. That Asian know the president. Is he scary? We're all his subordinates, including the evil spirits here. Aduz said calmly. You definitely don't want to see the president's scariest side. Mr. Aduz, the president can control evil spirits. Not control but restrict. How? Those who don't listen will all be destroyed by the president, Aduz said. Okay, it's time for dinner. Mr. Aduz, I'll go to the restaurant with you. The restaurant in the headquarters was decorated very luxuriously. Chen Zhao had been wondering if he should hire a chef. However, it just so happened that two of the captives knew how to cook, and they were quite good at it. Mr. Aduz, let's sit here. Henry had just placed the dishes on a table when a terrifying black shadow appeared. It was an evil spirit with only a face. It roared angrily, "Fuck off. This is my territory." Henry fell to the ground in fear again. Sit here, Aduz said. It's empty. Henry hurriedly ran to Aduz's side. Looking at the empty restaurant, he asked in horror. Mr. Aduz, are all the evil spirits here? No, only about 20. Henry shuddered. There were more than 50 seats in the restaurant. Did that mean that half of the seats were occupied by evil spirits? Harry secretly looked around the restaurant. Other than the black human face in that place, there were no other evil spirits. Henry really wanted to know what this place was. Just then, a cloud of black smoke floated in from outside the restaurant. It floated toward the black-faced evil spirit's position. Adav, this is my seat. Fuck off. Is it yours just because you say so? Yes. Do you have a problem with that? Of course. You're asking for it. You're asking for it. The two evil spirits immediately started fighting. Henry shuddered. The two clouds of black smoke were clearly separated, but they were also entangled. Aren't you going to stop them? Why should I? At this time, Henry noticed that evil spirits appeared on the empty seats around him. Some evil spirits could be recognized at a glance, while others looked exactly the same as humans. When these evil spirits saw the two entangled evil spirits, they all surrounded them and cheered. Cough cough. Henry saw Chen Zhao and Gaia walk in. In an instant, the chaos in the restaurant stopped. All the evil spirits returned to their original positions in an instant. The two evil spirits that were fighting each other stopped and put their arms around each other's shoulders, as if nothing had happened. Henry's eyes popped out of their sockets. Chen Zhao and Gaia went to the dining area and took 2 sets of food. They sat in the seat that Henry had been kicked out of. When the two evil spirits saw Chen Zhao and Gaia sit beside them, they both ran away. The food of the restaurant's chef is not bad. We can consider recruiting him as one of our members in the future. It does taste good. Gaia nodded. They didn't charge for this restaurant. It was a buffet, and they could eat as much as they wanted. After Chen Zhao and Gaia came in, Henry kept his head down. Are these evil spirits so afraid of the guild leader? He's like a demon king here. Aduz, I heard you saying bad things about me. Chen Zhao's voice came from the distance. Aduz smiled awkwardly. Aren't you going back for dinner tonight? Gaia asked. Feilai's been getting more and more picky lately, so I'll eat outside first. Pregnant women are all like that. As Feilai's stomach grew bigger, the baby inside her gradually took shape, so her taste increased greatly. At the same time, she started to get sick of eating. She definitely wouldn't touch things in the past, but now she was touching them. Chen Zhao couldn't show his disdain at home, so he could only eat outside before going back. After dinner, Aduz whispered, I'll take you to Ghost's Nest. What's Ghost's Nest? It's where the evil spirits live. It's the cave in the back mountain. Don't go there for now, Gaia reminded. A few evil spirits have entered the spiritual transformation stage. They're rather violent. What's the spiritual transformation stage? Harry asked. It's the growth stage of a spirit. It's like a child entering the rebellious stage. Usually, after staying in the human world for a long time, evil spirits will either dissipate or grow stronger. During this stage, evil spirits will become very violent and dangerous. Gaia, are you full? Yes, Gaia said, standing up. Come with me. I'll show you something. What is it? The two arrived outside the headquarters. Chen Zhao took out the Tower of Trials again. This thing again? Gaia asked. You're not going to destroy our new headquarters again, are you? Under Chen Zhao's incantation, the Tower of Trials started growing. In the end, it became a 100-meter tall tower. Wear this ring. Chen Zhao handed a ring to Gaia. And then, this is a Tower of Trials with 18 floors. It's used for actual combat and strength evaluation, Chen Zhao said. Each floor represents a level of strength. Oh, can I go in? Yes, as long as you wear the ring. Chen Zhao nodded. This ring can let you go in and out of the Tower of Trials. At the same time, you won't be killed by the monsters inside. Then I'll go in and try. Gaia couldn't wait anymore. Take your sword first, Chen Zhao said. Gaia's sword had been damaged when he'd destroyed the parent. However, he'd ordered a new one later on. After taking the sword, Gaia followed Chen Zhao into the Tower of Trials. The next moment, the two found themselves on a grassy plain. Gaia's eyes were filled with astonishment. This spell was beyond her understanding. Chen Zhao was surprised, but he maintained his composure. He could roughly guess that each floor of the Tower of Trials was a place similar to a mirror space. According to Chen Zhao's knowledge, even demons like Aker Byler could create such a large mirror space. Samuel had also helped him expand the size of his space ring by tens of thousands of times. A mirror space created by a demon king was definitely unimaginable. Just then, a strange cry sounded in the distance. A swarm of black insects was creeping over from the horizon. Chapter 980. They were all like beetles, but they didn't move as fast as beetles. The giant beetles were extremely fast. With horns on their heads, they charged at Chen Zhao and Gaia. Get ready to fight. Gaia swung her sword and charged at the swarm. The big sword swept across, and the three big insects were split into two. However, Gaia was also forced back a step. Chen Zhao was also fighting with his fists. At the same time, Chen Zhao was the type of person who would hit back in return. There were simply too many giant beetles. Therefore, he couldn't avoid it. He could only use this method of exchanging injury for injury. Thankfully, the giant beetles' attacks didn't do much damage to them. Once the giant beetles were killed, they would turn into black light and disappear. Chun, how long are we going to kill them? The battle had gone on for an hour. Gaia was already very tired. However, Chen Zhao was still full of energy. This kind of battle couldn't tire him. I don't know. The beetles were truly endless. Their numbers were shocking. The entire mountain was covered in beetles. Suddenly Gaia screamed. Her arm was hit by the beetle's charging horn. Her sword fell to the ground, and she was knocked to the ground. Chen Zhao was about to save Gaia when a beetle hit Gaia's head. Just then, Gaia's body also turned into a black light. When Gaia opened her eyes again, she found herself outside the Tower of Trials. First level F+. A voice suddenly appeared in Gaia's mind. Gaia was stunned. She quickly understood that it was to give her points for the battle just now. However, Chen Zhao hadn't come out yet. She didn't know what his score was. She just didn't know how to get to the second level. Chen Zhao killed 100 giant beetles. Suddenly the beetles retreated. A twisted monster ran over from the distance and appeared before Chen Zhao. This twisting troll was the same as the one he encountered in the mirror dimension. Chen Zhao went up and punched. The twisted monster's head exploded instantly. 3 options suddenly appeared before Chen Zhao. Continue to the second level, or leave and save the progress. Fuck, it's the same as the online dungeon. Chen Zhao chose the second level and continued upward. The second layer was a muddy swamp, and the sky was dark without any sunlight. Rumbling sounds came from the distance, as if thousands of horses were charging over. Soon countless twisted monsters appeared before Chen Zhao. He continued fighting, but the monsters were clearly much more difficult than the giant beetles on the first level. To speed up the killing, Chen Zhao had to take out his bronze sword. After fighting for more than 2 hours, they finally killed 100 giant twisted monsters. The monsters also started retreating. Then a monster that could spit fire appeared. After killing the monster, Chen Zhao received a notification that he could enter the third level or leave. Chen Zhao chose to leave and save. At the same time, he received a notification that the first level was E+, and the second level was E+. Chun Zhao, Gaia immediately said. Chun Zhao, you need to kill 100 monsters on each floor, and a monster from the previous floor will appear. Killing this monster will allow you to enter the next floor, or save and leave. Just now, I only needed a few more to pass the first floor's trial, Gaia said, a little disappointed. However, it also piqued her interest. Just then Wes walked over. President, you took out this weapon again. Here, wear this ring, Chun Zhao said with a smile. Oh, what's this ring for? Then press the ring on the stone door. Whoosh! Wes suddenly found himself in an unfamiliar environment. Immediately, a swarm of giant locusts pounced at him. Ah! Wes covered his head. He was instantly killed. The next moment, Wes walked out of the Tower of Trials. Fuck, how did you come out so fast? Chun Zhao and Gaia were both in disbelief. That was too fast. He'd only been in for less than 30 seconds. President, what's going on? It's so scary. It's so scary inside. Is that an illusion? Chun Zhao covered his forehead. You went to the Tower of Trials, Gaia said. You didn't kill a single beetle? I didn't see any beetles. I saw a swarm of locusts flying everywhere. Chun, how come we're different from the monsters West encountered? My friend made it for me. I don't know the details, Chun Zhao said. Maybe it's different for one person and two people. Let's go in and try. After I came out, I tried. I couldn't go in immediately. There's probably a time limit. West, go get everyone out here. Everyone ran to the Tower of Trials. Looking at the tower, they were all in disbelief. Put on the rings and go in. Chun Zhao had Giselle, Patya, and Jalanesh go in. In less than a minute, the three came out. They also had frightened expressions on their faces. It was obvious that they had also died once. President, that's scary. What happened? What's your rating? No rating. What did you see? A swarm of giant scorpions, Giselle said. Chun Zhao gave the rings to Jalag, Moore, Patalu, and Ingalit. 4 of you go in. Another 4 people came out in less than a minute. What did you see this time? Giant centipedes. Seems like it. With each person, the monster's strength increases by 1 level. Chun Zhao and Gaia guessed the result. President, I got an F-, Moore said. Oh, how many monsters did you kill? 1, Moore said. Klaus, do you want to go in and see? Chun Zhao looked at Klaus and the others. They weren't spiritualists, but since they'd joined the supernatural organization, they might come into contact with supernatural things. Sure. Chun Zhao gave them the rings again. 5 of you go in first. Tell us what monsters you saw when you come out. Then the 5 went in and came out. Everyone's face was filled with excitement and fear. We saw a giant hornet. Then Chun Zhao looked at Pan, Hallease, and Eric. You guys go in too. They came out not long after, but they were all battle type, so they all got ratings, even though they were all F-. Chapter 981. Aduz came out, excitement written all over his face. President, I got my score too. I killed a locust. F-. I can't wait to go in again and change my score. Gaia felt that it was a complete humiliation for him to get the same score as them. President, who made this Tower of Trials? It's so magical. It's unbelievable. My friend, Chun Zhao said calmly. Your friend must be very powerful in magic, right? More powerful than me, Chun Zhao said. Everyone gasped. More powerful than Chun Zhao? In their eyes, Chun Zhao was already unbelievably powerful. How powerful would someone be if they were stronger than Chun Zhao? From now on, the Tower of Trials will be placed here. You'll be judged every month. Your strength will represent the reward. Brother Wang, you have to take care of me in the future. Zhang Mao felt that it was unfair. But Wang he had succeeded after all, so he had to suck up to him. The country was already in an uproar. Some praised him, but there were also doubters. Some felt that Wang He's acting skills weren't good enough for Steven's new movie. They felt that Wang He might become Steven's Waterloo. Of course, Wang He's fans were very excited. It was undeniable that Wang He's fame and influence in the country were rising rapidly. Just then the doorbell rang. Wang He opened the door and saw Chun Zhao standing outside. There was a foreign woman beside him. This foreign woman's head was really big. Wait. This woman was at Marina's restaurant too. Mr. Wang, This is the movie's action director. She'll also be your military training instructor. Wang He's forehead was covered in cold sweat. Gaia stepped forward. Hi, I'm Gaia. Hi, I'm Wang He. The moment Wang He shook Gaia's hand, he felt intense pain. He felt like his hand was going to be crushed. On my hand, my hand. You're so weak. Gaia let go of Wang He's hand. Please be prepared. Not just physically but also mentally. Wang He broke out in a cold sweat. Chen Zhao patted his shoulder. Don't die. You're the male lead after all. Wang He was so scared that his legs had turned to jelly. However, facing Chen Zhao, he did not dare to speak. Chen, the spring semester has started. Don't you want to come to school? Also get to know your new student. Right, called Chen Zhao. Are there any new students in school? Chen Zhao asked, confused. The enrollment period for American universities was the same as that in China. They all started in the fall, right? Some students are suspended for half a year or a year, Wright said. Chen Zhao remembered that some university students in America would choose to postpone their enrollment after graduating from high school. They might take a break from school for half a year, or a year to travel, and have fun before considering enrolling. This kind of situation was very common among high school graduates. Any students want to learn Chinese medicine? Chen Zhao asked. Although Chinese medicine has gradually been accepted by Western society, the number of people learning Chinese medicine is still small. In order to learn Chinese medicine, some students went to China to study abroad. After all, compared to foreign universities, Chinese medical schools have more specialized Chinese medicine subjects and research. You have to take 4 students, Wright said. One is an exchange student. Okay, give me their contact numbers. Chen Zhao arrived at UCLA. Because it was the new semester, the school was very busy. The parking lot was already full. Chen Zhao looked around and parked the car in a temporary spot again. If he did not park here, the nearest parking lot would be 3 kilometers away. After getting out of the car, Chen Zhao walked into the school. Hello, student. A voice sounded from behind him. Chen Zhao turned around and saw a pretty girl. Chen Zhao was quite happy to be mistaken for a student. At least it meant that he looked young. How can I help you? Did you sign up for a club? No. Are you interested in the boxing club? Chen Zhao rolled his eyes. Not interested. Okay. Chen Zhao did not expect the girl to be from the boxing club. He had never seen her before. Was she new? But was the boxing club that short of people? Why was it recruiting people everywhere? Boxing had always been a popular sport in America, so there were always quite a few people in the boxing club. Hi, Chen. Chen Zhao had only taken a few steps when he saw Evely walk over from the distance. Evely, why are you here? You sound like I shouldn't be here. Evely rolled her eyes. I'm still a student here, and I haven't graduated yet. Oh, Chen Zhao answered. His brain hadn't figured it out yet. Chen Zhao thought that Evely was a full-time athlete now. He had completely forgotten that she was a student. Also, I'm your student, one of them. What? Chen Zhao's eyes widened. He looked at Evely in shock. You want to learn Chinese medicine? Is it weird? Of course it's weird. Why do you want to learn Chinese medicine? You're a swimmer now, a legend in the swimming world. If Phelps was a legend in the swimming world, then Evely was a myth. She was the holder of many world records. After the World Championship All-Star Invitational, she had also participated in other events. She was now the world champion in all the short and medium distance freestyle events. She held the world records for the 100m, 200m, 400m, and 800m events. She was also the world record holder for the 800m event as a woman. The World Championship only starts in August. Before that, it's boring training. I don't want to waste time on training, especially the kind that's very inefficient. You're close to your limit now. I'm afraid that normal training won't help you improve. Evely trusted Chen Zhao's judgment. In the past few matches, her results had been maintained at the previous record. She hadn't improved at all. When will you train me again? If I have time. Do you know the other 3 Chinese medicine students? Chen Zhao asked. Who else? Evely did not know either. Let's go see our classroom. Every subject had its own classroom, even if there were only 4 students. Chapter 982. Chen Zhao sat on the desk while Evely sat on the chair beside him. The two chatted. Ah! A scream came from the door. A girl stood there. The scream came from her. Chen Zhao and Evely turned to look at the girl. The girl covered her mouth and pointed at Evely. Are you Evely? Hello, Senior Evely. I'm. The girl tried to calm herself down. I'm Maggie. Hello. Chen Zhao flipped open the name list. Maggie, right? Come in. You're your intern tutor for this semester. Have you learned Chinese medicine before? Hello, Professor. I'm Maggie. Maggie was an ordinary girl. I've published 2 Chinese medicine theses before. I have some understanding of it. Chen Zhao nodded. It seemed that Maggie had some foundation. She wasn't a freshman. You weren't originally a UCLA student, right? I transferred from Riverside, Maggie said. Then she looked at Evely. This made Chen Zhao suspect that Maggie had transferred because of Evely. However, this was normal. A star student like Evely would be very influential in the school. For example, UCLA's recruitment advertisement last year had Evely's name on the school's website. Senior Evely, I was there for your match in Montreal last year. I really admire you. Evely really didn't know how to deal with such crazy fans. Maggie's eyes were full of stars when she looked at Evely. Just then, the classroom door was pushed open and a boy walked in. Entering the classroom, he looked at the 3 people in the room and found a random seat to sit down. Who are you? Chen Zhao asked. I'm Little Grove. I hope that I can have absolute freedom in the next semester. Also, I need A+ credits. I'll pay you enough. Buddy, can you give me 10 million a year? Little Grove looked at Chen Zhao as if he was crazy. You're crazy for money. Since you can't give me 10 million, you better get your feet off the desk. Do you know who my dad is? I don't know. My father is Drow Grove. I'm sure you've heard of him. Never heard of it. My father is a Hollywood superstar, Drow Grove. Haven't you heard of him? Is his dad famous? Chen Zhao turned to Evely. I was famous 20 years ago, but now, Evely said calmly. There were more people in the older generation who knew about him. But among the younger generation, he was probably not as famous as himself. Oh, she's just a has-been star. What are you talking about? Lit Grove was obviously very sensitive to the word outdated. Even if it was just his father, he still felt that it was very harsh. Put down your finger. It's rude to point at people like that. If your parents didn't teach you that, I don't mind teaching you manners on their behalf. Lit, you'd better not anger our teacher. Evely reminded. Our professor beat up at least 20 UCSF students and sent them to the hospital. Maggie looked at Chen Zhao in surprise. Evely seemed to be very familiar with their professor. Also, everyone in the boxing club listens to our professor. If you don't want to be targeted in school, you better behave. My dad is Drow Grove. I don't believe he dares to mess around in school. If I'm hurt in school, my dad's reputation will be ruined. A has-been star. Not many people care about him now, even if he's the former president. How much influence do you think a has-been star can have? Chen Zhao rolled his eyes. Little Grove's face reddened. He gritted his teeth and stared at Chen Zhao. Just then there was a knock on the door. A girl with heavy makeup, high heels, and chewing gum leaned against the door. Can I come in? Who are you? Raphael, the girl answered. Chen Zhao glanced at the name list. Come in. I called the 4 of you here today to get to know each other. Also, although I'm your intern tutor, the 4 of you will be interns in the hospital most of the time. When I'm in a good mood, I might give you a few lessons. Of course, don't have too much hope for me. After all, being a university professor isn't my main job. Chun, is this how you treat us? Evely said, rolling her eyes. It's not your first day knowing me. You should know my habits when you enrolled in the school. Then, Chen Zhao looked at Little Grove. Also, if you're not happy with me, you can come find me anytime. I'll be happy to play with you. No matter in the open or in the dark. Fire was about to shoot out of Little Grove's eyes. He stared at Chen Zhao. After Chen Zhao left the classroom, the 4 students started to get to know each other. Evely, are you familiar with our professor? Raphael asked. We're familiar with each other, Evely said. But his medical skills are the best. Which hospital will we be interns at? Senior Evely, are you planning to be an intern too? Maggie asked. Evely shook her head with a bitter smile. She could only attend a few lessons with Chen Zhao at most. As for being an intern, she was a medical student. But she was a professional athlete, and a very famous one at that. If she went to some hospital as an intern, she would definitely bring a lot of trouble to the hospital. Raphael, you're from a medical school too? I don't remember you. I'm a model. I spend most of my time running shows, Raphael said. My grades were too low last year. If I can't raise them this year, I'll be kicked out. That's why I chose a Chinese medicine major with the least classes. Do you have a boyfriend? Little Grove asked. The three girls in the classroom all glared at Little Grove. I'm not interested, Little Grove said. If Evely becomes my girlfriend, I might consider it, Little Grove said. Maybe I should have asked Chen to break your arms and legs, Evely said. Do you really think I'm scared of him? Little Grove said in disdain. You should be, Evely sneered. Evely sneered, then said to Maggie and Lapar, let's go out for dinner. You're a big star. Are you sure you won't be followed by reporters? Raphael chuckled. I'm just an athlete, not a star. Chapter 983. As soon as Chen Zhao walked out of the building, a woman walked toward him. Chen Zhao recognized the woman at first glance. She was carrying a huge box and seemed to be struggling. Hi, Willian. The woman was Willian, a biology professor from the San Diego branch, whom Chen Zhao had met on New Year's Eve, when he was going through the mirror space on the road from Las Vegas to Los Angeles. Mr. Chen, why are you here? Willian pushed her glasses up. Oh right. You're a professor from the LA branch. It's not strange to see you here. What are you carrying? Let me help you. Chen Zhao looked at Willian. The box was even bigger than her. It was difficult for her to walk. How can I help you? Chen Zhao had already taken Willian's box. It was probably more than 30 kilograms. What's inside? So heavy. Willian glanced at Chen Zhao. She was one of the few people who'd seen Chen Zhao's true face. Was this box that weighed more than 30 kilograms heavy to him? Wiping her sweat, Willian walked with Chen Zhao. Willian, I haven't asked you why you're here. I accepted Professor Forzel's invitation, Willian said. I'm here as his assistant to do biology research. UCLA's biology department had a huge campus. Chen Zhao walked into the building. Then he entered a laboratory. Many students were conducting experiments and research. Some places were even sterile and dust-free enclosed spaces. For example, the lab Willian brought Chen Zhao into had to be disinfected at the entrance. But as soon as he entered, he was stopped by a bearded man in a white coat. Who are you? Why are you here? The bearded man asked. Professor Forzel, Willian said. This is a professor from the medical school. He's helping me carry the box. Professor Forzel glanced at Chen Zhao. I don't care who he is. Don't you know that you can't bring people here? Willian looked troubled. She didn't think that Professor Forzel would be so heartless. Willian, I'm leaving, Chen Zhao said. He didn't want to make things difficult for Willian. Perhaps there were indeed such rules in the lab. Coming in rashly would indeed cause trouble for others. After leaving the lab, Chen Zhao went straight to Wright's office. Wright's office felt like Chen Zhao's home. Wright was sunbathing in front of the French windows. Chen Zhao walked in without even knocking. Wright, did you miss me? Wright turned her head and glanced at him. You're finally willing to come. You only came 3 times last semester. I was busy last semester, Chen Zhao said helplessly. How is it? Have you met with your students? You've given me quite a bit of trouble. Chen Zhao was very reluctant at first. However, Wright knew how to negotiate. First, she asked Chen Zhao to teach a class of more than 10 students. Chen Zhao rejected her as a matter of course. Then she suggested only bringing a few interns. Chen Zhao could not reject Wright continuously. When he came back to his senses, he realized that he had been tricked. Wright had never intended for him to lead a class. By the way, the school will be organizing a spring outing soon. Are you coming? Teachers? No, it's for the students, but some teachers will also go. They're not kids anymore. Why would they organize a spring outing? Sandro National Park just opened. The person in charge sent an invitation to our school. Forget it. Chen Zhao shook his head. Chen Zhao was really not interested in this kind of group outing. He might as well stay at home with Fei Lai. Just then, the office door was pushed open again. Professor Fossil rushed in angrily. Mr. Principal, I want to know why you rejected our biology lab's funding request. I think Camus' theory is not valid, so I don't think there's a need to continue the experimental research supporting Camus' theory. No, Camus' theory is correct. Professor Fossil was like an enraged lion. His voice was filled with anger. Then you've researched for 4 years and spent nearly $5 million. What did you find? Wright asked. No research is always smooth sailing. Camus' theory needs more support, more research funds, and more equipment. If you can give me your absolute support, my research would have produced results a long time ago. This is not my fault, and it is not Camus' theory that is wrong. I need some results, but you don't have any at all. How am I supposed to continue supporting your research? The school's funding doesn't come from nowhere. I can't endlessly support a research that's filled with uncertainty. Wright was determined. If she didn't support, then she didn't. Wright was a very practical person. If she thought a research project was a waste of time, she wouldn't continue supporting it. You'll regret it. I'll prove that I'm right. I'll prove Camus' theory is correct, Professor Fossil roared. Even if you don't support me, there will be people who will. Many companies are willing to spend money to support my research. Then you can find those companies to support you, Wright said nonchalantly. Don't regret it, Professor Fossil said angrily. Then he slammed the door and left. What's Camus' theory? Chen Zhao asked curiously. Professor Fossil once had a mentor called Camus. At an international biology conference, Camus presented his theory to the audience, but he was mocked by his peers. Camus then committed suicide in anger, and Fossil took over Camus' research, Wright said. Wright said, Camus' theory is to use drugs to stimulate the brain's neurons to increase the brain's intelligence. Sounds reliable, Chen Zhao said. You're not a biologist, so you don't understand the risks. Brain neurons are too complicated, and Fossil's research is too radical. He once asked the school to provide him with human corpses for research. How does the school provide corpses? Does our school have such a service? When people die, they donate their corpses to medical research institutions. Our school can also apply for it, Wright said. But our school can only apply for it from the medical school's laboratory. Laboratories outside the medical school are forbidden from using humans for experiments. Chapter 984. Has Professor Fossil always been this hot-tempered? William asked in a low voice, pulling a student aside. Sounds of smashing could be heard in Professor Fossil's office. No, Professor Fossil used to be a very gentle person, the student said. It seems that the lab's funding hasn't been approved recently, so Professor Fossil has had a few arguments with the school. Fossil was currently destroying everything he could. Just as he was about to smash his computer, he stopped. The things in the computer were too important. Just then Fossil's phone rang. Professor Fossil, I heard that the school rejected your funding request. How about it? Do you want to consider my funding? I can give you more funding. The annual funding is 10 times what UCLA has given you in the past few years. I'll also give you the best equipment, and even the best assistants. Fossil listened to the unfamiliar voice on the phone. He hesitated. Over the past few years, this person had been calling him. However, Fossil had always rejected him. This time, however, he was really shaken. What do I need to pay? Fossil asked. You don't need to pay anything. You just need to continue your research, the person said. Also, I can provide you with experimental subjects. Not just the dead but also living people. Fossil's expression changed drastically. The person continued. You also know that any biological or medical experiment requires clinical trials in the end. You'll never get results if you keep experimenting with mice. Even using corpses is meaningless. You can only get the final data on living people and prove Camus' theory. Just then, a fat man came into the lab and pushed open the door to Fossil's office. Nicholas, what are you doing here? Fossil looked at the fat man in front of him in an unfriendly tone. I've been informed by the school that your lab will be disbanded. The students who interned with you will also be assigned to other labs. No, you don't have the right to do that, Fossil shouted. I indeed don't have the right, But the principal does, Nicholas said. I think you need to prepare and file the experimental data. I'll bring some people to clean up the lab tomorrow. Nicholas did not want to talk nonsense with Foslier, so he directly stated his purpose of coming and left. Foss stared at Nicholas back, his eyes blazing with fury. You will regret this. Hello, Mr. Waltz, I'm Chen Zhao. Tim Waltz was surprised that Chen Zhao would call him first. Hello, Mr. Chen. How can I help you? I have a few students who are going to do their internship, so I want them to become interns at Chantilly Hospital. No problem. How many internship slots do you need? Ever since Chen Zhao saved his son, Hoffman, his physical condition had improved greatly. Tim Waltz had always kept this in mind. However, he usually couldn't help Chen Zhao much. Now that Chen Zhao had taken the initiative to ask for a few internships, he obviously wouldn't reject. 2 or 3, Chen Zhao said. Chen Zhao had guessed that Evely wouldn't become an intern. It wasn't because Evely wasn't capable enough, but because of her special identity. As one of the most famous sports stars in America, the attention she received was like a 200-watt light bulb above her head. She would be watched wherever she went. Chen Zhao wasn't sure about Maggie, Lit Grove and Lepore. Okay, I'll arrange for 3 attending doctors to follow you. When Chen Zhao walked out of the school, he saw Sharon giving him a ticket. Hi, dear Miss Sharon. Sharon could tell at first glance that the car was Chen Zhao's. Therefore, without any hesitation, he directly put up a ticket. Don't call me so intimately. We're not that close. Let me see how many tickets you've given me since we met. Let me see how many times you've violated the rules. Are you done eating? Do you want to eat together? No, I still have to work. Sharon rejected Chen Zhao's invitation mercilessly. By the way, you have a nice figure. I hope I can see you running naked on the road again. Sharon had touched his sore spot. Chen Zhao's expression darkened immediately. I hope you'll stay at the Ministry of Transportation forever. Chen Zhao opened the car door and was about to leave. Sharon's expression also darkened. To her, it was also an eternal pain. The two parted on bad terms. Chen Zhao walked a few streets, planning to buy some things at the supermarket. As soon as he parked in the parking lot, a car stopped behind him. 2 hoodlums got out of the car, both holding baseball bats. They seemed to be here to block Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao was now standing in the narrow gap of the car. When Chen Zhao walked over, one of the hoodlums swung the baseball bat at his shoulder. Chen Zhao reached out and grabbed the bat's head. Chen Zhao snatched the baseball bat and hit the hoodlum's shoulder lightly. Ah! The hoodlum was knocked to the ground. The other hoodlum wanted to help, but he was also knocked to the ground by Chen Zhao. Who told you to come? Chen Zhao asked. The 2 hooligans just kept howling and didn't say anything. Chen Zhao kicked the hoodlum in front of him. Who told you to come? Don't mess around. Our boss is the Wild Boar King. If you dare to hit us again, he'll definitely take revenge for us. Wild Boar King? What kind of idiot force gets this nickname? Chen Zhao rolled his eyes and kicked the hoodlum again. The 2 hoodlums wanted to try harder, but Chen Zhao just kept hitting them. If they didn't tell the truth, Chen Zhao would hit them harder. We'll tell you, it's Lit Grove. He paid us $500 to beat you up. One of the hoodlums couldn't take it anymore and finally told the truth. Chen Zhao's face darkened. His student had paid hoodlums to beat him up? Chen Zhao took out his phone and called Tim Waltz again. Mr. Waltz, I'll reduce the number of interns by 1. Also, do you still need security at the hospital's morgue? Tim Waltz was stunned. Security at the morgue? What kind of request was that? Mr. Chen, are you joking? Chapter 985. What's wrong with you two? Morgary was playing with his pet, Victoria, in front of his house. Seeing his 2 subordinates with bruises all over their faces and bodies covered in wounds, Zhang Wuji was stunned. Boss, you have to help us. The 2 ran to Morgary sobbing. You were beaten? In that case, I'll bring some people with me and get my revenge. Boss, not only were we beaten by someone, but that person also insulted you. He said that your nickname is an idiot. But Morgary's response made the 2 speechless. Morgary's response was too calm. There was no anger at all. Morgary knew exactly how he got his nickname. Wild Boar King, because he had a super huge wild boar Victoria. Plus, He also thought that the nickname was stupid. But now, no one cared about his original name anymore. He couldn't change it even if he wanted to. Boss, he said that he's going to kill and eat Victoria. Yeah, boss. That asterisk shoal said that there's no pet stupider than a wild boar in the world. Hearing this, Morgri was infuriated. Victoria was his most important partner. Back when he was on the run, he'd relied on Morgri to get through the toughest times. Where's that asterisk shoal? Who is he? Ukla. He's a professor. Ukla. Professor? Morgri frowned. A rich student from UCLA hired us. It's one of his teachers. He's from China. What's his name? Morgri asked. Chun. Fuck. Morgri lifted a foot and kicked the subordinate in front of him. Hey Chun. Chun Zhao was surprised that Morgri would call him today. In the past 6 months, Morgri had only called him on Christmas and Thanksgiving. Was it because China's Lunar New Year was coming, and he wanted to wish Chun Zhao well? Hi Morgri. How are you? Chun. I heard that you were blocked by 2 hooligans yesterday. You know that too? Chun Zhao was surprised. They're my subordinates. Fuck, you're the wild boar king. This nickname popped into Chun Zhao's mind. Can you not mention this nickname? I hate this nickname the most. Your nickname is too stupid. Did your enemies give you this nickname? Forget it, let's not talk about my nickname for now. My 2 subordinates are taking private jobs outside. I didn't ask them to go. I know what's going on, I didn't misunderstand. Do you need me to do anything? It's just a small matter. I don't need your help. Is Victoria okay? It's good. And it's very strong and very smart. Morgri truly felt Victoria's IQ. He even felt that Victoria could understand his words. The 2 reminisced for a few minutes. Chun Zhao had his life, and Morgri had Morgri's phone number. However, they both knew that if the other needed something, they would help each other. Little Grove was very pleased with himself. This was not the first time he had done something like this. In his career, he had threatened no less than 20 teachers. Even his private teachers had been beaten black and blue by the gangsters he'd hired. With a few hundred to a few $1,000s, he could achieve his goal. Before being attacked, the teachers were still very tough. But after being beaten up by the people he'd hired, they all behaved like cowards. Little Grove, we already taught that Chinese a lesson according to your request. When are you going to pay? Send me your account number. I'll transfer the money to you now. I have a shit account number. I'm still wanted by the police. I need cash. Fine, where are you? Little Grove said nonchalantly. I'll go over and give you the money. It was not the first time he'd found these 2 gangsters, so he did not think much of it. Then the gangsters gave him the address. Little Grove drove there, but when he arrived, he saw the 2 gangsters lying on the ground. He found 2 hooligans lying on the ground, bruised and bleeding all over their bodies. Gauss Piolio, what's wrong? Little Grove hurried over to check on them. Just then, the car door opened and Chun Zhao alighted. Hi Little Grove. What a coincidence. You're here too. When Little Grove saw Chun Zhao, his expression darkened. You. Why are you here? Chun Zhao's face was full of smiles. Tomorrow, all the major entertainment media in Hollywood will receive a piece of news. Lit Grove, the son of the famous movie star Drow Grove, hired an assassin to murder his university tutor. Little Grove's expression turned furious. You're slandering me? Chun Zhao walked to the 2 gangsters on the ground and kicked them. It's your turn. That's right. Little Grove hired us to kill you. You're slandering me. Yes, I'm slandering you. Smiling, Chun Zhao looked at Little Grove. But who knows? As long as the 2 of them testify, it's enough. You don't have direct evidence. I don't need direct evidence. You've transferred money to their bank accounts at least 5 times, and they've helped you beat up at least 5 teachers. I can find 5 of your former teachers and get them to testify in court. When the time comes, your father's reputation will be ruined, and you will spend more than 10 years in prison. I'll arrange for you to be locked up in a gay black cell. I think 10 years should be enough time for you to change your sexual orientation. I'm not going to kill you. You can't do this to me. Little Grove was completely flustered. Gauss Piolio, you can't do this to me. I'm your friend. Gauss and Piolio covered their heads and didn't answer Lit Grove. Yes, they were good friends with Little Grove, But they didn't want to die. The consequences of offending the Wild Boar King were far more severe than offending Little Grove. To put it bluntly, Little Grove's family only had some money. They couldn't do anything to them. But the Wild Boar King was different. He was the boss of the biggest gang in LA. If they offended the Wild Boar King, they might be thrown into the sea to feed the sharks tomorrow. Gauss Piolio, Little Grove said agitatedly. If you commit perjury, you'll go to prison too. Chapter 986. You can't do this. You're a teacher. How can you frame your own student? Ritter Grove stared at Chen Zhao terrified. Of course I can do that. And I'm going to do it soon. Chen Zhao looked at Lit Grove with a smile. Don't do this. Ritter Grove was finally scared. He realized that the man before him was even crueler than him. He'd wanted to find someone to beat him up. But Chen Zhao wanted to destroy him. Chen Zhao's smile made him feel cruel and cold. I like obedient students. I'll listen to you. I'll listen to you. I won't go against you anymore. Really? Really? Chen Zhao smiled. You'll listen to everything I tell you? I will, I promise. Ritter Grove nodded hurriedly. Remember your promise today. Chen Zhao patted Ritter Grove's shoulder. I'll remember. I've arranged an internship for you, Chen Zhao said. I accept, Ritter Grove said hurriedly. That's a good kid. Chen Zhao patted Ritter Grove's shoulder. In Ritter Grove's eyes, Chen Zhao was a complete demon. Let's go. We'll go to your internship now. Ritter Grove sat in Chen Zhao's car. Chen Zhao glanced at the two hoodlums. If I call you, turn yourself in and tell the police what I told you. Ritter Grove's face was pale. He was completely regretting it now. Why did he have to provoke Chen Zhao? When they arrived at Chantilly Hospital, Ritter Grove was somewhat surprised. He'd thought that Chen Zhao would arrange some hard job for him. It turned out to be Chantilly Hospital. It was the best private hospital in LA. Of course, the word private could be removed. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that it was the best hospital in LA. The best hospitals in America were all private hospitals. Medical students who wanted to intern would basically be assigned to public hospitals. Without some ability, it was very difficult to get into a private hospital for internship. To be able to enter a private hospital, one had to have such good grades that the person in charge of the hospital took the initiative to hire them. The internship period of such students was far shorter than that of ordinary students. There was another type of person who had a strong background and used connections to get an internship in a private hospital. Little Grove followed Chen Zhao to Dean Kahiri's office. Hi, Mr. Chen, you're here. Kahiri greeted him warmly. Dean Kahiri, Mr. Waltz has already told you, right? My student needs some internship work. Yes, I did. Kahiri nodded and glanced at Lit Grove behind Chen Zhao. He's one of my students, Lit Grove, Chen Zhao said. Is the contract ready? Yes, of course. Kahiri met Chen Zhao's gaze. He took out a contract and handed it to him. After you sign this contract, you'll be an intern here. Just as Lit Grove was about to read the contract, Chen Zhao yelled, Hurry up, don't waste my time. Lit Grove only saw that he was a follower of a doctor called Tarag. He didn't have time to read more of the contract. Mr. Dean, if he breaks any rules in the hospital, please inform me immediately. I'll make sure he receives the punishment he deserves. Of course, Mr. Chen. I'll help you take good care of this kid. Let him be on duty tonight. No, from now on, he'll be on all the night shifts, Chen Zhao said. What? So it was a private hospital for him. Lit Grove didn't think much of it. He'd thought that it would be some difficult job. Wasn't it just the night shift? It wasn't difficult at all. Maybe he thought that the night shift would make him retreat. He'd really underestimated himself. Kahiri took out his phone and dialed a number. Tarag, there's an intern here. Come and take care of him. He'll be interning with you. Not long after, Lit Grove saw a gloomy man walk in. Tarag glanced at Lit Grove. Is it this kid? Yes, and he'll be in charge of the night shift. Kahiri handed Lit Grove's contract to Tarag. Tarag looked at Lit Grove in surprise. Kid, come with me. Hello, Dr. Tarag. I'm Lit Grove. Which department are we in charge of? Lit Grove took the initiative to greet Tarag. Which medical department did you study in school? I mainly studied surgery. Then why were you assigned to my department? Which department are we in? Litgrove asked. Cadaveric department. Also, you're our security guard. This department was mainly responsible for confirming the patient's death certificate. For example, when a patient died, the doctor in the cadaveric department would confirm the death and issue a certificate. Then the body would be sent to the morgue. As for security, they had to patrol the morgue every once in a while. What? Litgrove was dumbfounded. Don't joke around. I'm not. Don't you know what you're here for? I quit, Litgrove said angrily. I'm leaving. I won't accept this kind of job. He finally understood Chen Zhao's intention. Tarag was not surprised by Litgrove's reaction at all. Fine. Tarag did not stop Litgrove. Litgrove returned to Katheri's office, flustered and angry. Dean, I'm quitting. I'm quitting. Litgrove stated his intentions directly. Sorry, my kid. You might not be able to quit, Katheri said with a smile. You signed a contract. You must follow it. What contract? I'm an intern. I signed an internship contract. No, it's a labor contract. The hospital will pay you a year's salary in advance. If you quit during the contract, you'll have to pay a penalty. It'll be 100 times your salary. How much is my salary? Litgrove's face was pale. Your salary should be relatively high in our hospital. It's $200,000 a year. This is fraud. This is fraud. Litgrove roared. This penalty was clearly illogical. Katheri shrugged nonchalantly. Chapter 987. With such a high penalty fee, there was clearly a trap. However, the stronger party would always have all sorts of explanations. For example, because Litgrove needed money, he paid a year's salary in advance. In order to prevent Litgrove from breaking the contract, he set the penalty fee at a high price. That explanation made sense too. The main thing was who was stronger. If Litgrove was stronger, he could use the contract to sue the hospital for fraud. I'm going to sue the hospital. Litgrove regretted it as soon as he said it. Chen Zhao still had something on him. If he had to face 2 lawsuits at the same time, he would definitely lose. Once Chen Zhao sued him for attempted murder, he would be in a very passive position. As the director of the hospital, Katheri obviously knew better. If it wasn't for safety reasons, he wouldn't give such a contract. Kid, you should read the contract carefully next time, Katheri said, smiling. Mr. Chen, please let me go. Please let me go. I won't dare to go against you anymore. The sky was already dark. Litgrove called Chen Zhao and begged him to let him go. Only if Chen Zhao let him go would he be able to free himself. Otherwise, he would be accompanied by corpses for the rest of the year. Be a security guard at the hospital or go to jail, Chen Zhao said. Choose. Let him go. How could he let him go so easily? Litgrove begged a vengeful person to let him go. He was destined to get nothing. It seemed like Chen Zhao had given him 2 choices. But in reality, Litgrove didn't have a choice. He could either be a security guard or go to jail. Hey, new guy, come here. It's time for work. Litgrove's face was pale. I'll be here. I'll watch the place. Okay. Remember, you have to patrol once an hour. Why do I have to patrol? It's full of dead people. Do you know about the Veil Act? Litgrove shook his head, indicating that he hadn't heard of it. There was once a man named Will. He was sent to the morgue because he faked his death, but he came back to life in the morgue. However, because he did not receive effective treatment in time, he died in the morgue. The surveillance cameras recorded the whole process of his death. So the International Medical Organization later established an international convention that the morgue of a hospital must have personnel on duty, and they must patrol it on time. Litgrove agreed verbally, but he thought that no one would know as long as he sat outside when he was on duty. He would not enter the morgue even if he was beaten to death. He did not want to see the dead. Other than guarding the morgue, Litgrove also had to register the dead that were sent from the hospital. It wasn't a good feeling. Little Grove felt like he would lose interest in meat. After midnight, Ritter Grove grew more and more uneasy. Just then, 2 people in protective suits with their faces covered came from outside. One of them walked up to Little Grove. Where's the registration form? Litgrove glanced at them. Who are you? Don't waste time, the other person said. We don't have much time. The man in front of Lit Grove suddenly took out a stun gun and hit Lit Grove's body. Ah! Little Grove screamed and fell to the ground. The two people started pushing the corpses out of the morgue one by one and put them into a big bag. The corpses were piled up together. Another person came in from outside the morgue and dragged the bag away. By then, the person who'd spoken to Little Grove had already found the registration form. He flipped through it and said, "The quality this time is not bad. Most of them are only 3 days old. Tell the big idiot to be gentle. Don't damage our goods." Should we get rid of this person? No need. We're not here to kill people. Early in the morning, Chen Zhao was woken up by a phone call. He picked it up and heard Kashili's voice. "Mr. Chen, something happened to your student." "My student?" Chen Zhao was still confused and did not understand. "You mean Little Grove? What happened to him?" "Last night, a group of body thieves came to the hospital and stole 12 corpses from the morgue." "What? What happened to Little Grove?" Chen Zhao sat up abruptly. He was electrocuted and is receiving treatment now, but his mental state is very bad. He was too shocked. "Are you sure he didn't direct it himself?" Chen Zhao asked. "I don't think so. According to the police, it's not a single case. There have already been 3 body thefts in LA. "I'll go to the hospital now," Chen Zhao said. Regardless of Chen Zhao's personal grudge with Little Grove, he couldn't just stand by since something had happened to his student. When Chen Zhao arrived at the hospital, Little Grove was curled up in bed. What happened last night had given him quite a fright. Maggie and Raphael were also in the room, visiting their classmate. "Little Grove, I'm here to see you," Chen Zhao said. "Get out of bed." Maggie and Raphael had already found out from Little Grove that Chen Zhao had done. However, Little Grove clearly hadn't explained things clearly. They didn't understand how Chen Zhao had coerced Little Grove into becoming a security guard in the morgue. Both of them looked at Chen Zhao with a strange expression. They both knew about the conflict between Chen Zhao and Little Grove on the first day of school. However, Chen Zhao's method of revenge was truly new to them. "Get out!" Chen Zhao saw that Little Grove was still curled up in bed. Little Grove really didn't want to see Chen Zhao. He poked his head out and looked at Chen Zhao. "Mr. Chen, I'm really uncomfortable right now. I need to rest. I'll give you a few days off. Tell me what happened last night." "Mr. Chen, you really didn't send those people to mess with me?" Even if Chen Zhao wanted to mess with Little Grove, he wouldn't make such a joke. Stealing someone else's corpse was too much of a joke. "Do you have some misunderstanding about me?" "Ha, misunderstanding." Little Grove didn't think that there was any misunderstanding between him and Chen Zhao. "Mr. Chen, I don't want to be a security guard in the morgue anymore. I know I was wrong. Please let me find another internship." "Ha," Chen Zhao chuckled. "We're all adults. Everyone has to take responsibility for what they've done. I was just impulsive." Chapter 988. My mental state is very bad. I need to rest. This is a reasonable request. Lit Grove was also a medical student. He also knew under what circumstances he could rest. Smiling, Chen Zhao looked at Lit Grove. "You won't have a chance. Unless you die here, don't even think about escaping from your post." Lepore and Maggie both looked at Chen Zhao. They didn't expect Chen Zhao to be tougher than they'd imagined. At first, they'd thought that Chen Zhao would at most teach Lit Grove a lesson and let him know fear. After this incident, Chen Zhao might let Lit Grove go. But Chen Zhao didn't show any mercy. "Don't think about getting diagnosed with some mental illness. You can't escape." Lit Grove's face was ashen. He'd indeed thought of that. But Chen Zhao had blocked his last way out. "Rest well for 3 days, and then return to your post." Lit Grove was in great pain. Chen Zhao was completely torturing and destroying him. But he couldn't do anything about it. Chen Zhao patted Lit Grove and turned to leave. After leaving the ward, Chen Zhao went to the surveillance room. He pulled up the surveillance footage from the morgue last night. Lit Grove had spent most of his time playing with his phone outside the morgue. Then the 3 body thieves arrived and electrocuted Lit Grove. Chen Zhao noticed that one of the 3 was a big guy who didn't look normal. He was very strong and could drag a dozen corpses away. Then they dragged the corpses into the stairs. Next, they appeared at the back door. and went around to the parking lot. Chen Zhao looked at the big guy. He might be a spiritualist, or maybe all three of them were spiritualists. The big guy's strength clearly wasn't something a normal person should have. Their motive for stealing the corpses was also a mystery. What could the corpses be used for? They were usually used for medical research. If they just died, the organs could be removed and transplanted to someone else. But when the three stole the corpses, some of them had already been dead for 2 or 3 days. Obviously, they couldn't be transplanted. Therefore, Chen Zhao naturally thought that it was either a research institute or a place to practice black magic. Apart from these two possibilities, Chen Zhao couldn't think of anything else. David, I want information on a case. Can you help me look it up? What case information do you want? Recently, there have been 3 cases of body theft from hospitals in Los Angeles. I want to know the details of these 3 cases. Is this case related to the supernatural? I'm not sure. But one of my students is involved, so I want to confirm the nature of this case. Alright, I'll help you look up some information. Maggie, Raphael, do you have internships in the hospital? Chen Zhao asked. Teacher, I need it, but I don't want to go to the morgue, Maggie said. Ever since Lit Grove was tricked, Maggie didn't dare to agree easily. Of course, she hoped to get an internship. In particular, a private hospital like Chantilly had a good environment and high treatment. If she could get an internship here and get an invitation from the hospital after the internship, then her years of studying medicine would not be wasted. Don't think that every doctor is trying to benefit society or humanity. Many students' initial goal is to earn money or stand out. No one is more noble than the other. A profiteer doctor might not be worse than a doctor with lofty ideals. No problem, Chen Zhao said. Which department do you want to intern in? The surgery department, Maggie said. Sure, I'll arrange it for you. Chen Zhao looked at Raphael. Raphael, do you plan on interning here? Teacher, I'm an amateur model right now. I'll probably spend most of my time on fashion shows. I understand, Chen Zhao said. I don't object to you becoming a model, but I won't lower my requirements for the final exam. If you don't get enough points, it'll be hard for you to get my signature. Yes, I understand. It was a student's choice to enter any industry. But as a teacher, Chen Zhao definitely hoped that his students' scores were up to standard or excellent. Without enough points, Chen Zhao wouldn't give Raphael special treatment. This was his responsibility to both parties. Although Chen Zhao had been very reluctant when he accepted the job, he knew that he had to be responsible. Chen Zhao had accepted the job unwillingly, but since he did, he had to be responsible for his own work. Chen Zhao asked for another internship from Kahiri and arranged for Maggie to come in. Raphael didn't ask her. If she wanted to be a model, then so be it. Hey Raphael, do you have time for the 3 days after tomorrow? Hyson, is there an event? Hyson was Raphael's guide and her manager. Whenever Raphael had a fashion show, Hyson would arrange it for her. Hyson was quite famous in the modeling industry. He managed more than 10 models under him. Of course, most models were like Raphael. They were all 3rd or 4th tier models, but Hyson had a lot of connections. There were benefits to signing with a small model. It was easier to control a small model. At the same time, a small model's commission was higher. The famous model's commission would be 15%. But for a small model like Raphael, it was at least 30%. This is a good opportunity. The Baroness is going to shoot a promotional video. It'll be directed by the famous director Mr. James. You must be fully prepared in these 3 days. Raphael's eyes brightened. Director James. Of course she knew who Director James was. He was a new upstart director in Hollywood. The movie Animal Mart had made James famous. The movie hadn't been released yet, but the box office had already reached a high. Every girl wanted to be famous. Raphael was no exception. Any model wanted to enter Hollywood and become a Hollywood star. However, it was harder for a model to become famous than an actor. Because Hollywood had never been fond of models, being able to act as a pretty face and appear in a movie for a few minutes was already very difficult. What do I need to prepare? Diet, exercise, and then change into a pretty outfit. I'll pick you up the day after tomorrow for the interview. Diet and exercise were part of a model's daily routine. Chapter 989. Professor, can you lend me some money? Chen Zhao was very surprised to receive Lepore's call. If some students had financial difficulties, Chen Zhao didn't mind helping them. However, Lepore was definitely not a poor student. In the few times Chen Zhao had interacted with her, all of her clothes were branded. It would cost at least $2,000 or $3,000, not including her makeup. Chen Zhao was rich, but he didn't need to buy luxury goods for his student. How much do you need? $10,000. Give me a reason to lend you money. I can pay you back. I'll pay you back $20,000 in a month. Whoosh! Chen Zhao didn't even dare to borrow such high interest. This was usury. Chen Zhao might even lose his professorship and go to jail because of this. As long as Lepore reported it to the school or the police, Chen Zhao wouldn't be able to explain himself. Even if Chen Zhao didn't care about his professor title, he didn't want to take the risk of being a scapegoat. That's not a good reason. Professor, what do you think I should do? What do you need money for? I have an interview the day after tomorrow. It's very important to me. I need to buy makeup and clothes, Lepore said directly. You've been a model for a long time, right? Don't you have any savings? Models weren't high-income people, but they shouldn't be low. Chen Zhao had learned about the market from chatting with Zola before. Normal models could earn $300 to $500 per show. Although they couldn't walk every day, they could still have a few shows per month. Most shows didn't have any rehearsals. They would only be given a schedule, and the show would be completed in less than an hour. Only high-end shows like Baroness would hire models to rehearse for a few days. Models with slightly better conditions might even have 2 or 3 shows per day. A show wouldn't be held in one venue. Instead, they would walk back and forth on the runway. This was called a show. They might even have to do several shows in the same show. Models' fees were the same. One show would earn them some money. Chen Zhao guessed that Lepore was a senior model. She wasn't famous, but she had been in the industry for a long time. Therefore, there should be quite a number of job opportunities. At the very least, he should have some savings. I don't have any savings. My monthly income is about $20,000, which is just enough for my expenses. Unfortunately, my credit card maxed out this month, so I need some money for emergencies, Raphael said. Do you need to spend $10,000 for an interview? Of course it's worth it. Send me a letter of guarantee. I'll lend you the money without any interest. As long as you can get at least a B+ on the monthly test, I'll lend you the money. If you can't get a B+ or above on the monthly test, you'll have to give up your modeling work for a while and attend tutoring classes. Sure. Lepore's academic performance was quite good, so she felt that it wouldn't be difficult to get a B+, as long as she worked a little harder. Then he received an electronic guarantee. Chen Zhao transferred the money over without hesitation. Raphael got the money, and his face was full of joy. After all, in this day and age, it was easy to borrow money, but it was extremely difficult to borrow money without paying a price. For example, her agent Hyson. Although Hyson was very capable and well-connected, he wasn't a kind person. Borrowing money from him was like sending a sheep into a tiger's mouth. Just then Hyson's call came. Raphael, do you need money? If you need it, I can lend it to you. No need, Hyson, Raphael said. I have money. Fine. If you need it, I can lend it to you anytime. After all, you're my general. Thank you, but I really don't need it. Hyson really felt that it was a pity. Recently, he had been looking for a chance to control Raphael. Unfortunately, Raphael was very smart. Normal moves were almost useless against her. As a model agent, his income was actually quite high. However, he also had another identity, a pimp. Many models had already been dragged down by him, forever under his control. He introduced his models to rich people and earned commissions from them. This was far more than a model agent could compare to. Each time, he could earn at least $10,000 or $20,000. It was much higher than a show's commission of a few hundred, or even $1,000. Raphael's conditions were very good. If he could drag her down, she would definitely become his money-making tool. President Norma is here. Mr. Lewis is here too. Oh, they're here? I'll go over. When Chen Zhao arrived at the headquarters, Louis and Norma had already been there for quite a while. Accompanied by West, the two of them were touring the facilities of the headquarters. Because the association had helped Louis and Norma through difficult times before, they were familiar with each other. Other than a few newcomers, Chen Zhao was familiar with most of them. "Hi Louis, Norma," Chen Zhao greeted them. "Chen." Louis walked over and hugged Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao looked at Norma's eyes. She was like a female pirate. One eye was covered with an eye patch, while the other glowed with a dark green light. The eye of nightmare. "Chen, I'll leave Norma to you." "Wait. I have to tell you two in person first." Chen Zhao waved his hand. "First, the supernatural organization often encounters dangerous missions and operations. It's dangerous, so I can't guarantee Norma's safety." "Norma." Louis also looked at Norma worriedly. Of course, he hoped that Norma could be safe. Even if she didn't touch magic, she could just stay at home obediently and take over the family's management one day. According to Chen Zhao, Norma might come into contact with dangerous things. If Norma had to face the kind of danger she'd faced on the third night every day, Louis felt chills down his spine. "Uncle, I like it here. I want to stay here." "Chen, can you give Norma special care?" Louis asked. Chen Zhao shook his head. "No. Rules are rules. If Chen Zhao gave Norma special care, it would be unfair to the others. There were a few younger ones in the association who also needed special care. For example, Moe, Giselle and Alice. They were all very young, but they received the same treatment as the others. They had to face the same danger during missions." "Mr. Chen, I can be like the others," Norma said. Chapter 990. Go and evaluate your magic level and power, Chen Zhao said. "Go and evaluate your strength." "President, Norma's already done a magic power evaluation." Norma raised the red ring on her hand. Chen Zhao was surprised. "Be not bad. How much magic power?" 380, Norma answered. "Wear this ring." Chen Zhao gave Norma another ring. "This ring is?" Norma was confused. Was it the rule of the supernatural organization that one had to keep receiving rings after joining? But Norma still wore the ring. "Follow me." Chen Zhao brought them to the Tower of Trials. He realized that there were people on the second floor. Before Chen Zhao could ask, a beam of light shot out from the door. Then Gaia fell to the ground. "Phew. Chen, you're here. You've passed the first floor." "Yes, I got an E+ rating," Gaia said. "But the second floor was too stressful. I only killed a dozen monsters and came out." Chen Zhao easily passed the second floor. He didn't feel any pressure. "Hi, Ms. Gaia." "Norma, you're here." The two greeted her. "Do you need the Tower of Trials?" Norma didn't know what the Tower of Trials was for. She turned to Chen Zhao. "Monsters will attack you later. Lots of them. Of course they'll kill you, just like in games. If you're killed inside, you'll come out like Gaia. Your life won't be in danger," Chen Zhao explained. "You only need to kill 100 monsters on each floor to pass. There's also a score." "Okay, how do I go in?" Norma asked. "Put your palm on the stone door," Chen Zhao said. Norma walked forward and pressed her hand on the door. She instantly entered the first floor of the Tower of Trials. "How long do you think Norma can last?" Gaia asked. "Norma shouldn't be very strong," Chen Zhao said. "Although her magic power is only second to Gaia's." 30 seconds at most, West said. "Chen, what is this Tower of Trials?" Louis asked, confused. Norma found herself on a grassland. Her heart was filled with shock. This was too magical. Where was this? Was it really Dale? Just as Norma was pondering, a large number of giant locusts appeared in the distance. The locusts charged towards Norma. The green light in Norma's eyes intensified. In an instant, swarms of giant locusts fell from the sky. The giant locusts were not very resilient, and falling from a height of more than 10 meters would basically cripple them. Some fell to their deaths, while others lost their arms or legs. Just then, the giant locust escaped, and a giant twisted monster appeared. The twisted monster charged towards Norma. Norma used the same trick again. When the twisting monster came into contact with Norma's green eyes, it stopped moving. Norma pointed at her forehead and muttered, I can. The next moment, Norma felt her body filled with power. Norma's eye of incubus could not only hypnotize her enemies, but she could also hypnotize herself. This was an ability that Norma had developed over the past few days. Of course, this kind of hypnosis could greatly increase Norma's physical strength, but it could only reach human limits. If Norma forcefully hypnotized herself beyond human limits, the damage to her body would be too great. Norma dashed towards the twisting troll, then used the twisting troll's need to jump up and land behind it. At the same time, she took out a dagger and stabbed it into the back of the twisting troll's neck. The twisted monster instantly woke up, but it could not catch Norma on its back. Norma held on tightly to Invictus and pulled it down. The twisted monster's neck was completely cut open, and it fell to the ground motionless. Just then, a voice rang out in Norma's mind. Level 1 passed. SSS Plus rating. She chose to save and leave, or enter the second level. Norma chose to enter the second level. Soon Norma appeared in a swamp. A large number of twisted monsters appeared in the darkness ahead. Norma wanted to use the same trick, but this time, she was not facing one twisted monster, but a large group. Norma could only hypnotize 10 twisted monsters at most at once. Moreover, she could not hypnotize the giant locusts and make them fall to their deaths. The other twisted monsters charged at Norma immediately. A punch landed on Norma. The moment Norma flew into the air, another combo followed. Norma realized that she was back outside the Tower of Trials. You just entered the second level? Chun Zhao looked at Norma in shock. What? You entered the second level? Wes was also shocked. What's your rating? 3S+. Everyone's jaws dropped. In the end, they all looked at Chun Zhao. Even Chun Zhao had entered the second level with an F+, but Norma had passed the first level with such a high score. Was Norma stronger than Chun Zhao? What about the second level? Chun Zhao asked. I didn't kill a single monster on the second level, Norma said. The monsters on the second level are too strong. I couldn't hypnotize too many of them, so I failed almost instantly. F-. Everyone heaved a sigh of relief. It seemed that she had only passed the first level because of her magic. Does your Eye of Nightmare have any restrictions on enemies? Chun Zhao asked. I can only hypnotize enemies who are weaker or close to me. If they're stronger than me, the effect will plummet. Try it on me. Norma sent a hypnosis spell at Chun Zhao, but it had no effect at all. President, you have no effect at all, Norma said. Yeah, I'll try it too, Gaia said. Norma also used hypnosis, and then shook her head. Gaia, my magic is useless on you too, but my suggestion enhancement might be useful. What's that? It's also a type of hypnosis. It can greatly enhance a person's physical strength, and it's close to the limit. However, your magic is very strong, so I'm not sure how effective it will be on you, Norma said. I also want to go in and give it a try, Louis said eagerly. Sure, go in. Chun Zhao wasn't stingy at all. He casually tossed a ring to Louis. After you go in, you can release Blackie. Louis listened to Chun Zhao's suggestion and released Blackie after entering. But in less than a minute, Louis came out. How was it? Did you pass the first level? Chapter 991. What's with those people? Louis pointed at a few people wearing collars in the distance. Are they some kind of special talent? The collars on their necks look very high-tech. Do you want one? I can give you one. Can I? That's too much, Louis said, embarrassed. How much does the collar cost? I'll pay. No need, it's free, Chun Zhao said with a smile. What's the collar for? West and Gaia both turned their heads, stifling their laughter. Just press a button, and you can send your head to the sky. What do you mean? It's used to kill. Louis opened his mouth and looked at Chun Zhao in shock. Why? What did they do wrong? Nothing big. They were hired to beat me up. They beat you up? Do they want to die? Maybe. Just then Chun Zhao's phone rang. Chun Zhao looked at the caller ID. It was Lit Grove. Mr. Chun, I want to take a few more days off. I don't approve. Mr. Chun, I signed up for the school's spring outing. I want to relax. Chun Zhao thought about it and said, Fine, I'll give you 3 more days. If you don't, I won't let you guard the morgue. I'll let you lie in the morgue. Who's this? My student. He also found 2 gangsters to beat me up. He's still alive. Nothing. I just want him to watch the morgue, Chen Zhao said nonchalantly. Oh, when are you going back to New York? I've only been in New York for less than a day, and you're already chasing me away. I'm just asking. You're thinking too much. I don't have the right to chase you away, but I won't accompany you anymore. With that, Chen Zhao entered the Tower of Trials. Chen Zhao wanted to see how many levels he could pass with his power. He went straight to the 3rd level. Groups of winged demons guarded the 3rd level. These winged demons had black bodies and were around 3 meters tall. They held steel tridents in their hands and were extremely fast. Their strength was not weak either. Like a cannonball, the winged demons charged at Chen Zhao with the fork. Chen Zhao held the bronze sword in his hand and swung it. However, Chen Zhao's bronze sword couldn't break the winged demon's steel fork. It only sent the demon flying. Just then, a winged demon behind him stabbed his back with a steel fork. The 1st and 2nd levels posed no pressure to him at all. However, the pressure on the 3rd floor suddenly increased. The difficulty was different from what Chen Zhao had imagined. Chen Zhao thought that the monster's strength would only increase a little, but the sudden increase in difficulty forced Chen Zhao to fully focus on the battle. Of course, this could also be due to Chen Zhao's personal battle style and magic characteristics. For example, Norma wasn't as powerful as Chen Zhao and Gaia, but she could get an SSS plus on the 1st level. Even Chen Zhao and Gaia couldn't do this. It was possible that her strength just happened to restrain the monsters of a certain floor, which was why she received a particularly high score. However, with Chen Zhao's physical strength, the winged demon's damage to him was very limited. Chen Zhao used the dark serum to defend against attacks from the back. In 2 hours, Chen Zhao finally killed all 100 winged demons. Chen Zhao thought that there would be a monster from the 4th floor, but it didn't appear. There was only a bee on the 3rd floor, and a prompt to save and leave, or continue to the 4th floor. Chen Zhao entered the 4th floor. It was a withered forest. Withered trees surrounded him. The air was filled with fog, making visibility very low. Just then, more and more skeleton soldiers appeared around him. Chen Zhao reached out and crushed the skull of a skeleton soldier. A trace of surprise appeared on his face. Wait, the monsters on the 4th floor couldn't be so weak, right? Even the monsters on the 1st floor were much stronger than these skeleton soldiers, let alone the ones on the 4th floor. Chen Zhao easily charged and killed a dozen skeleton soldiers. They posed no threat to Chen Zhao at all. Chen Zhao killed 100 skeleton soldiers, but he didn't get a clear or a score. Weird. Do I have to kill more than 100? Chen Zhao killed another 100 or so, but there was still no clear notification. Suddenly, a chill came from Chen Zhao's back. Chen Zhao reached out and grabbed a chilling ice arrow. Chen Zhao looked behind the skeleton soldiers and saw a skeleton mage in a black robe standing not far away. The skeleton mage held a magic staff in his hand, and the skeleton soldiers were constantly reviving around him. Moreover, they were reviving endlessly. In other words, this guy was the real monster on the 4th floor. The skeleton soldiers were his summoned creatures, not the real monster? The skeleton mage waved his wand and shot a green flame at Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao immediately felt the threat of the green flame. He flipped over and dodged. At the same time, Chen Zhao's dark serum swept across the ground and wrapped around the skeleton mage's feet. Then he was pulled into the dark serum. But at this moment, there were even more skeleton soldiers in the surroundings. This reminded Chen Zhao of the feeling when he was squeezed into the subway. Chen Zhao saw a few skeleton mages standing at the back of the skeleton army. To break through these densely packed skeleton soldiers, the difficulty was simply too great. Chen Zhao had to use the clone spell. The doppelganger spell helped Chen Zhao clear the way while he charged at the skeleton mage. After killing his way through, Chen Zhao finally reached the skeleton mage. The skeleton mages cast spells at the same time. A bone prison appeared around Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao shattered the prison with one punch. Then he smashed the skull of a skeleton mage. The other skeleton mages immediately cast curses at Chen Zhao. Weakness, aging fear, blindness, and a series of other curses landed on Chen Zhao. Curses were the last thing Chen Zhao was afraid of. The Eye of Curse opened and devoured the curses. Blackie was also good at necromancy, so Chen Zhao had a good understanding of it. Chen Zhao used a full 3 hours to kill 100 skeleton mages. He finally passed the 4th floor. Chen Zhao's rating was C-. It was clearly 1 level lower than the B+ on the 4th floor. Chen Zhao thought for a moment and decided to continue to the 5th floor. The 5th floor was a vast land of broken rocks. Wind was already blowing in the distance. Chen Zhao could feel the ground rumbling. Chapter 992. Just then, there was a cloud of dust in the distance. Chen Zhao saw many things tangled together. It was like a bunch of eels tangled together. But when he got closer, Chen Zhao could see clearly that it wasn't a bunch of eels. It was a bunch of 3-headed dragons. The gyre that Chen Zhao had encountered in the past was like this. It wasn't one but hundreds of them. Without thinking, Chen Zhao took out his zither and 12 stone swords. The 12 clones went up to stop the dragons from approaching Chen Zhao at the same time. Chen Zhao sat down cross-legged and placed his zither on his legs. Zung, zung, zung. The sound of the zither started. The murderous intent had arrived. The 12 stone swords spun out like a meat grinder. A dragon head fell before Chen Zhao. This was Chen Zhao's ultimate move, his trump card. These 3-headed dragons were about as strong as the 3-headed dragon gyre from back then. Chen Zhao could beat gyre in the past, but there weren't just 1 or 2 of them now. There were dozens and hundreds of them. Of course, Chen Zhao was much more powerful now than before. Chen Zhao felt the mana in his body flow out like a spring. Using the zither to control the sword sounded pretty cool. However, it used up too much mana. All the battles on the first 4 levels combined couldn't compare to what Chen Zhao used now. The zither sounded like a storm. The swords were like rainbows, and the murderous intent was sharp. Suddenly the zither stopped. The battle was over. Chen Zhao's forehead was covered in sweat. His mana had been used up too. Thankfully there were settings in the Tower of Trials. Although there were more than 100 monsters attacking, the rest would retreat automatically. However, as long as 100 monsters were killed, the rest would automatically retreat. 5th level, SSS+. He could choose to save and leave, or enter the 6th level. Of course he chose to leave. Right now, Chen Zhao had no more energy to fight. After recovering, he would try to get to the 6th level. After these days of research and the members of the association coming in and out, Chen Zhao had a general understanding of this rating. The speed, efficiency, number of attacks from monsters and damage all affected the rating. The speed and efficiency of clearing the stage, the number of times monsters attacked, and the damage dealt would all affect the score. Because of her speed and the fact that she wasn't attacked, she got an SSS+. Because of her speed and the fact that she wasn't attacked, she got an SSS+. It was the same for Chen Zhao on the 5th level. After leaving the Tower of Trials, Chen Zhao realized that the people of the Union were all outside. Why are you all here? President, which floor are you at? Everyone looked at him curiously. I cleared the 5th floor. Everyone gasped. After all, only Gaia and Norma had cleared the 1st level. Moreover, of the 2 of them, one was able to clear the stage due to the magic element's restraint, while the other barely passed. After hearing Gaia and Norma talk about the strength of the monsters on the 2nd level, they all felt that it would be good if Chen Zhao could pass the 3rd level. They didn't expect Chen Zhao to pass the 5th level. Chen, what are the single monsters on the 3rd, 4th, and 5th floors? The monsters on the 3rd floor are called winged demons. They are very fast and can fly. In terms of individual strength, they should be about 5 times stronger than the twisted monsters on the 2nd floor. Chen Zhao estimated and said, the 4th level is skeleton mages. They can summon skeleton soldiers limitlessly. At the same time, they can cast black magic, necromancy, and curses. Helis was also a necromancy expert. Hearing this, her eyes shone brightly. She wanted to see the skeleton mage on the 4th floor. But with her current strength, it was impossible for her to reach the 4th floor. The difference was too great. She couldn't even pass the 1st floor. The 5th floor is the 3-headed dragon demon we met last time at sea. It's a monster like Gaia. 100. Gaia gasped. Chen Zhao nodded. But the 5th floor is my limit. I used my trump card to pass it. Although that was what Chen Zhao had said, it was still very shocking to everyone. I can't even beat one opponent like Gaia, let alone 100. Gaia shook her head. She had been guessing how strong Chen Zhao was. But now it seemed that the gap between them wasn't just a little big. Of course, the difference in strength didn't mean that Chen Zhao could kill 100 three-headed dragons and Gaia couldn't. The difference was 100 times. It was like an adult could beat 100 children. But it didn't mean that the adult was 100 times stronger than the children. Nevertheless, it still meant that the difference in strength was huge. The others also knew that Chen Zhao was a monster. However, they didn't expect the difference to be so huge. Okay, I should go back. On a bus heading to the suburbs. Little Grove was on the bus at the moment. The bus was filled with UCLA students. UCLA had more than 10,000 teachers and students, but only a few were willing to participate in the spring outing. After all, with the convenience of transportation in the United States, regardless of whether it was students or teachers, they were more willing to go somewhere with their friends or lovers instead of going out with their classmates or teachers. The people who signed up for the spring outing were all freshmen, except for Lit Grove, who sat beside a girl. Hi, hello, I'm Lit Grove. Hi. The girl lifted her eyelids to look at Lit Grove, but then she focused on the textbook in her hands. Can I know your name? Little Grove asked. Are you Bona-kun? The girl called Bona-kun raised her head and looked at Ritter Grove. How did you know? Do you know me? Your name is written on the cover of your book. Oh. Bona-kun retracted her attention. Just then, another person boarded the bus. Little Grove knew this person. It seemed to be Professor Fursell from the biology department. However, Lit Grove noticed a drop of blood on Professor Foswell's trousers. His gaze then shifted to Professor Foswell's cuff. There seemed to be a tear there. His gaze then shifted to Professor Foswell's neck under his collar. There seemed to be a red claw mark. Some strange images suddenly flashed through Little Grove's mind. They were intermittent and blurry. A woman fought with Professor Fowles and was beaten to death by Professor Fowles. Little Grove shuddered. Cold sweat appeared on his forehead. Strange. Why would he think of such a strange image? At this moment, Bona-kun turned to look at Ritter Grove. Insight spell? Chapter 993. Did anything happen to you recently? Bona-kun's eyes flashed as she looked at Lit Grove. What? Did you get attacked, injured, or sick recently? Bona-kun asked. Ritter Grove, on the other hand, was confused. Did this girl know about him? It wasn't something to be proud of to be sent to the morgue by one's teacher. Lit Grove's expression darkened immediately. Just then, the bus stopped again and a girl boarded. Bona-kun pointed at the girl. Look at that girl. Lit Grove looked at the girl. His eyes immediately scanned some of her features. At the same time, inappropriate images of the girl flashed through his mind. Lit Grove's body shook slightly. He turned to look at Bona-kun. What's wrong with me? Why are those images appearing in my mind? Bona-kun turned to look at Lit Grove. Tell me first, did something happen to you recently? I was electrocuted by a stun gun the day before yesterday, Lit Grove said. But what does that have to do with what I'm asking? That's right, Bona-kun said. In many cases, male spiritualists have a simpler awakening process. What? To put it simply, you've awakened. You're a spiritualist now. You can also call yourself a wizard or a wizard. Wizard? You're saying I'm a wizard? Lit Grove looked at Bona-kun with a strange expression. He felt that Bona-kun was definitely not normal. Or maybe she was a severe Chinibu. Looks like you don't believe me. Bona-kun's lips curled up. She pointed at Lit Grove's forehead. Suddenly Little Grove saw a figure. Chen Zhao. Then Chen Zhao slapped him in the face. Ah! Lit Grove covered his face. But Chen Zhao was nowhere to be seen. What just happened? I can create the illusion of the person you're most afraid of, Bona-kun said. But you seem to be very afraid of this person. In order to create his illusion, I actually used up so much magic power. Lit Grove was confused. His mind was a mess. But when he noticed some details on Bona-kun, some strange images flashed in his mind. Seems like you've discovered a lot of things. Your natural insight is very rare, Bona-kun said. Are you really a witch? Little Grove asked in a low voice. Do you still have any questions? I want to know more information about me and about you. Which aspect do you want to start with? Let's talk about my awakening first, and the insight magic you mentioned. Awakening is a process that every spiritualist has to go through. Bona-kun said. But the awakening process for witches and wizards is different. Witches have 3 nights. Wizards are much simpler. Although they also have 3 nights, the awakening process for wizards is equivalent to the simplified version for witches. Since you woke up on the first night, it can only mean that your ability is relatively weak. But didn't you say that my ability is rare? There's no conflict between being rare and being weak. Take protected animals for example. They're rare, but that doesn't mean they're powerful. Then can I beat ordinary people? If it was an ordinary person, you would definitely be able to defeat them. Even some experts in combat might not necessarily be your match, because you have insight that ordinary people do not have. And you even have the ability to see through the enemy's weaknesses. Little Grove's first thought was to take revenge on Chen Zhao, although that guy had something on him. However, he could legitimately invite him to the boxing ring, and then defeat him in front of everyone. By then, his reputation in UCLA would definitely be greatly reduced. Also, you already have magic. It's very weak, but it also has some defensive power. When you're attacked, it will help you reduce some damage. Does that mean I can block bullets? Little Grove was already imagining himself as a superhero. Bona-kun rolled her eyes. The defensive power I'm talking about only reduces the damage by 10 or 20%. It's not complete immunity. Also, if someone points a gun at your vitals, there's no real difference whether you have magic or not. You belong to the support type spiritualist category. You don't have much of a bonus in terms of individual combat power, especially if you want to deal with the same kind of spiritualist. Support type spiritualists are rare, and you are a rare animal among the rare. Is there any way to increase my power? Little Grove asked. Yes. For example, you can find a magic teacher to teach you spells of the same system. You can learn offensive spells of the same system, based on your own magic foundation. Can you teach me? If you're willing to be my student, I can teach you, Bona-kun said. I have an enemy. If you're willing to help me take revenge, I'm willing to be your student, Little Grove said. What enemy? He's a teacher in school. He's also a scoundrel, *Shoal. Little Grove told her about Chen Zhao's evil deeds. Of course, he also left out his own actions and emphasized Chen Zhao's violence. No problem, Bona-kun said. I can help you teach him a lesson. Your magic can defeat him, right? Little Grove asked worriedly. I heard he's very powerful. My magic isn't invincible, but no one is. As long as he has someone he fears, I can defeat him. That's good. Little Grove heaved a sigh of relief. But he has something on me now. I can't let him know that I ordered you to do this. It's okay. I have a way to force him to tell me, Bona-kun said. Where is he now? I don't know. Try to recall, Bona-kun said. You might be able to find information about his current location. Chapter 994. Right. Lit Grove pointed at Professor Fossil in the front seat and said in a low voice, I just saw Professor Fossil kill someone. Bona-kun looked surprised and then shook her head. It's none of our business. Don't worry about it. But shouldn't we call the police? Call the police? What are you going to say? Tell the police that you discovered the murder with magic? Then we're just going to ignore it? What else are you going to do? Be careful that some research organization discovers your ability and captures you as a test subject. Are there many such organizations that capture people like us? Yes, a lot, so we can't expose ourselves. Forget it. My life is more important. The bus stopped outside Sandro National Park. Because it wasn't fully open yet, there weren't many people here. At the edge of the park was a residential area with shopping malls, supermarkets, and hotel restaurants. Of course, the tourists who came to Sandro National Park weren't here to enjoy the hotel restaurants. Most of them were here for camping and mountain adventures. The teacher in charge was Nicholas, the school's security director. The students gathered. After Nicholas said a few words, the students were free to do whatever they wanted. Everyone could do whatever they wanted. After all, They were all adults and had their own ideas. After the meeting time was given, the students were completely dismissed. Everyone left in twos and threes. Some students planned to camp in the wilderness of the park. Some planned to spend the night in the hotel. Lit Grove and Bona-kun moved together. Bona, what are we going to do now? I'm here because it's said that there's nature essence in this forest. I'm here to find it. What's nature essence? Lit Grove asked curiously. It's a supernatural substance bred by the forest. It's similar to some kind of moving plant. It has low intelligence and avoids humans. It's not a natural spiritualist. If you get the essence of nature, you'll be able to touch nature magic, Bona-kun said. I'm an illusionist witch. I want to learn nature magic. Can I learn? If you find enough nature essence, I can share some with you, Bona-kun said. But you'd better learn your talent magic now. Then when will you teach me magic? When you call me teacher, I'll teach you magic. Lit Grove looked at Bona-kun. It was too awkward for him to call a girl younger than him his teacher. Teacher? Bona. All right, let's go. Bona-kun brought Lit Grove into the forest. Teacher Bona, how are we going to find the essence of nature? Don't worry, it's still early. Let's find a place to rest and wait for nightfall. Does nature's essence only appear at night? Yes. The two of them set up 2 tents by a small stream and started a fire at the same time. One must be aware of safety precautions when lighting a fire in the wild. If there was a fire in the forest, then they would face huge compensation. There was once a young man who caused tens of millions of dollars to be lost because he set fire to the forest, and this loss was borne by the young man himself. This was not a problem that could be solved by going to jail. Sometimes compensation was more hopeless than going to jail. Tens of millions of dollars in compensation was enough to destroy a person's entire life. They were not allowed to take planes, buy luxury goods, or even enter restaurants that cost more than $80 per person. However, most of the young people in America were more aware of safety precautions. There were more than 20,000 summer camps in America, and tens of millions of young people participated in them every year. In this aspect, America was far ahead of the world. The sky began to darken. The two sat in front of the fire, ate something and started chatting. Are there many people like us in this world? Lit Grove asked. Not many, maybe 1 or 2 out of 100,000 people. Also, most awakened spiritualists are weaker than you, Bona-kun said. They're the same whether they're awakened or not. At most they can see evil spirits. Evil spirits? Is it scary? Lit Grove looked at Bona-kun with some fear. You won't feel scared once you get used to it. I awakened when I was 5, Bona-kun said. But I have a teacher by my side to teach me, so I've never experienced fear, Bona-kun said. What about your teacher? He passed away, Bona-kun replied. Bona-kun replied. Every spiritualist has their own inheritance. My teacher taught me magic, and then I will teach you, passing on my inheritance. Can I learn your magic too? Lit Grove asked. As long as you can learn it or I know it, I can teach you. But a wizard's magic is much weaker than a witch's, Bona-kun said. Just because you learn it doesn't mean you can use it. Is there no way to increase your magic power? There are some, but it's very difficult, Bona-kun said. I came to Los Angeles because I heard that there are many powerful spiritualists and organizations here. I hope to join them, Bona-kun said. What organizations are there? I don't know about the others, but I know there's the Supernatural Organization. It's an organization formed by supernatural people. They've participated in many operations and maintain the safety and stability of L.A. at the same time. I hope to join them. Then I'll join too, Lit Grove said. They don't recruit just anyone. Someone like you who's just awakened and doesn't have any combat power can't join them. Are there any requirements to enter the Supernatural Organization? Lit Grove asked curiously. First, you have to have a certain combat power, or be able to support the team, Bona-kun said. Bona-kun said, I don't know the exact process, but I've heard my friend talk about the Supernatural Organization. So before I go for the interview, I need to improve my strength. Bona, teacher, I'll help you. I'll definitely help you join them. Chapter 995. There's a camp up ahead. The two discovered the camp up ahead. Footprints, marks, campfires. Just then, images flashed through Lit Grove's mind. A couple had been attacked here. It wasn't by wild animals. It was a human. Lit Grove immediately rushed to the camp to search for clues. As he found more information, the images in his mind became clearer. What's wrong? Bona Twain asked. Lit Grove shook his head. Someone died here. It was a couple, but their bodies were dragged away. No, one of the men is still alive, but he was taken away too. Do you know who it is? 175 centimeters tall, wearing size 43 shoes, weighing about 70 kilograms, and very strong. It's Professor Fursill, Bona Twain said. What does he want? We can't let him continue killing people. We have to call the police, Lit Grove said. Let's call the police, Bona Twain said. My phone has no signal. Use yours. Mine has no signal either. Bona Twain glanced at her own phone. It had no signal either. Let's go outside the forest. It's a bit secluded here. But just then the fog started spreading. Damn, why did we encounter the fog so coincidentally? Do you recognize the direction? Bona Twain asked. Lit Grove shook his head. I can't. It might be that way. Most people had a poor sense of direction. They could only tell the direction when there was a reference. Some trained soldiers or navigators could tell the direction from the stars, moon, or sun in the sky. But most people couldn't even look at the stars. Lit Grove pointed in a direction, but realized that the two were going deeper and deeper. They couldn't see the rest area at all. Suddenly, a cry for help came from up ahead. The two exchanged a look and immediately rushed over. In the distance, they saw Nicholas lying on the ground. Another man stood in front of Nicholas, holding a bloody wooden stick in his hand. The person with the stick was none other than Professor Fursill. Don't kill me. No. Nicholas was crawling on the ground, his head covered in blood. Professor Forsyth grinned evilly. Stop! Ritter Grove shouted, jumping out of the shadows. Bona Twain had no choice but to follow Lit Grove out. Professor Forsyth looked at Lit Grove and Bona Twain. Not only did he not panic, he became even more excited. Another lab rat. Professor Forsyth's eyes glowed with an unusual red light, and his chest rose and fell rapidly. Suddenly, Professor Fursill charged at Little Grove. So fast. Before Lit Grove could react, Professor Forsyth had already grabbed him by the neck and lifted him up. Ritter Grove was shocked. He hurriedly struggled and used his fist to hit Professor Fursill's head. However, Professor Fursill didn't move at all. His strength was simply too great. Bona Twain reached out to grab Professor Fursill's arm and cast Fear Illusion. However, nothing was created. Professor Forsyth wasn't afraid of anyone, so naturally, he couldn't create enemies that he feared. Professor Forsyth waved his hand and Bona Twain was thrown to the ground. Just then, a few more figures walked out of the fog. Professor Forsyth threw Lit Grove to the ground. Professor Forsyth, what can we do for you? One of them said. I want these two alive. Kill that one and bring his body back, Forsyth said. One of them mentioned Lit Grove and suddenly said, Huh? What a coincidence. You know him? He was a security guard at the morgue of a hospital we stole from. Lit Grove couldn't see the person's face clearly, but he could already tell. This was the person who had stolen the body a few days ago, and then knocked him out with electricity. The group of people brought Lit Grove and Bona Twain through the fog for a long time. They were brought to a huge building deep in the mountains. The entire building was shrouded in fog. Bona Twain and Lit Grove were locked in a bulletproof glass cage. It's all your fault. If you hadn't been so impulsive, we wouldn't have been in danger. Bona Twain looked at Lit Grove resentfully. I used my phone to record Forsyth's attack, and threw my phone on the ground, Lit Grove said. He didn't notice at the time. I believe someone will find out that we're missing. As long as the rescue team finds my phone, they'll definitely come to save us. I hope so. Those people aren't ordinary people, Bona Twain said. What do you mean? Professor Forsyth lifted you in the air with one hand. Even a weightlifter can't do that. Just then, a figure walked over from the corridor outside the prison. It was the body thief. He strolled to Lit Grove and Bona Twain's cage, and looked at them with a smile. Hello. Lit Grove rushed to the edge and shouted through the bulletproof glass. "You're breaking the law. Hurry up and let us go." "Huh?" The man laughed. "Do you think that's possible? How much money do you want?" "I can give you that much," Lit Grove said. "My dad is rich. Do you think this is kidnapping? Isn't it? I didn't bring you here for money." "Then what is it for?" "It's an experiment. You guys are the lab rats. It's illegal to use humans for experiments." "Haha, you're such a cute kid." The man laughed. Lit Grove's face turned red. "What do you want for us to leave?" "You can't leave here, at least not alive," the man said. The man said, "If you're lucky enough, you might be able to persist in the experiment. If you're unlucky, you might be able to survive." "Are we going to die?" "No, it's scarier than death." The man took off his hood. Lit Grove was shocked. Half of the man's face was skinless. There seemed to be something wriggling on the flesh. "I used to be like you, but I was lucky to survive the experiment." "Did Professor Forsyth do it?" "No, we were sent by our boss to help Professor Forzel. We're not Professor Forzel's men. Why didn't you run?" Chapter 996. Just then the big guy dragged someone in. To be precise, it was a corpse. The corpse's skull was gone, leaving a trail of blood on the ground. The big bloke arrived outside the cage. "Dog, how should we deal with this guy? Is it trash?" Mr. Fossil said that it's useless. "Then throw him into the corpse pit." At this moment, the person who was supposed to be a dead body, suddenly, he let out a sharp cry, and his body spasmed violently. The big man lifted up one of the man's legs and looked at it. Lit Grove and Bona Twain saw that the man's brain was flashing red. It was as if his brain was filled with neon lights. But in the next moment, this failed product's brain suddenly exploded. Brain juices splattered everywhere. The big guy wiped the blood off his face. Ritter Grove and Bona Twain were both shocked. It was very likely that they would be like this person, subjected to strange experiments, and then their brains would also explode. Dog looked at Ritter Grove and Bona Twain. "What kind of experiment are you doing?" "Professor Fowles invented a neuron drug that can greatly develop the brain, improve the brain's operating ability, and improve intelligence. However, the side effects are also very obvious, and the failure rate is very high," Dog said. "Will also be used for this kind of experiment?" Little Grove asked. "That's right. You guys will also be sent to be test subjects." Both of them were pale with fright. Even Bona Twain was no exception. The big man dragged the body to the wall and pressed a button. A passage opened up in the wall, and the big man was about to throw the body in. Suddenly, a few figures rushed out from inside. They were a few big lizards, but their hind legs were very thick, much thicker than their forelegs. They did not look like lizards, but more like a hybrid between a lizard and a human. They pounced on the big man. The big man shook off one of the lizard men, but the lizard man was stuck to the wall. The other lizard men were attacking the big man, and at the same time, they were fighting over the corpses in the big man's hands. Bona Twain and Lit Grove were scared out of their wits as they watched. The big man's clothes had already been torn by a few lizard men, and the big man's real body was revealed. His body had obviously been experimented on. His body was badly mutilated by the lizard men, but he was still very tenacious. The big man kicked the lizard man over and stomped it to death. He then grabbed the lizard man on his shoulder and twisted him to death. Of the remaining two lizard men, one dragged the corpse back into the tunnel. The last one charged at Dog. Dog turned his head to look at the lizard man that was charging at him. He suddenly stretched out his arms and grabbed the lizardman's neck at lightning speed. Crack. The lizard man was strangled to death by Dog. This is also a test subject. You can say that. This is a discarded product left behind by the previous researchers of this laboratory. Dog said, "There are a lot of these things in the corpse pit, and there are even more terrifying monsters." Looking at the big man in the distance, he was about to throw the lizardman's corpse into the passage and close it. At this moment, Professor Fossil walked in from outside. When he saw the lizardman corpse on the ground, he couldn't help but be stunned. "What is this, Mr. Foss? This is an experiment left behind by the previous owner of this lab." "Oh, this isn't a human, is it?" Professor Foss picked up the lizardman's corpse and began to examine its joints. The muscle tissue and bone structure at night. This isn't an experimental mutation. It looks like an evolved species. Is there still such a thing? There are more, but the exact number is unknown, Dog said. Then go down and get some, Foss said in a commanding tone. Mr. Foss, it's too dangerous down there. This lizard man isn't the only monster down there. There are even more terrifying monsters, Dog said. I don't care. The boss sent me here to absolutely obey my orders, Foss said matter-of-factly. Dog's expression was a little ugly. He narrowed his eyes and looked at Foss. This is not on our list of tasks. We are only responsible for helping you find the living and the dead, as well as the enemies who invaded here. Other tasks are not within our scope of business, Dog said. If you refuse, then don't even think about getting my experimental data, Foss said forcefully. This isn't a human, nor is it a species from the human world. This is a monster from hell. At that moment, Bona Twain, who was locked in the glass cage, spoke up. Foss turned to look at Bona Twain with a disdainful expression. Have you read too many novels or comics? I'm serious. This is a monster from hell. It has a very strong evil aura, Bona Twain said. Although I don't know why they're here. I'm sure that they don't belong to the human world. Speaking of which, they do have their own language. Professor Trevor once did research on these lizard men. He found that they have high intelligence and some social skills, Dog said. Where did Professor Trevor get these lizard men? He made a deal with a cult. As for the true origin of the lizard men, we don't know either. Can you still contact that cult? Foss asked. We can't. You guys may not be able to deal with these things, but I can, Bona Twain said. You can. You can't even beat me. How can you deal with these things? That's the difference between us. You're a scientist, and I'm a witch, Bona Twain said. Bona Twain said, there are some people or things in this world that you can't understand. You say you're a witch. Why should I believe you? Lit Grove didn't understand why Bona Twain would voluntarily reveal her identity. Wasn't it more dangerous for her to reveal her identity like this? Bona Twain obviously had her own plans. At that moment, Bona Twain grabbed her right wrist with her left hand. Then, everyone saw a frame outside the bulletproof glass float up. Dog and Foss were both surprised. Special ability? What's going on? What ability is this? When Foss looked at Bona Twain, there was a fanatical look in his eyes. Now you believe me, right? I'm a witch. Since you're a witch, can you come out by yourself? Chapter 997. Chun, your student is missing. Wright dialed Chun Zhao's number. When Chun Zhao received Wright's call, his first thought was that Lit Grove had gone somewhere else. Thinking about Lit Grove's personality, it was also possible. He participated in the spring camping trip. 6 people went missing with him, Wright said. The police are already investigating. The Forest Park search team is also doing a carpet search. Could it be that he went somewhere else with his classmates? Chun Zhao asked suspiciously. No, he did go to Sandro National Park, Wright said. We can see from the surveillance cameras on the bus he took. Besides, it's not just the students who went missing. The security director, Nicholas, is also missing. According to the police, 4 other tourists went missing in the forest, and when they found their campsites, their luggage and tools were all intact. We also found traces of a struggle and blood at one of the campsites. Chun Zhao frowned. I have a friend in the police. I'll help you ask around. Chun Zhao then called David. David wasn't in charge of the case, nor was it in his jurisdiction. However, the LAPD's files were shared, so David could still find some information. David, did you get the information? I just received a message from Sandro National Park. The search team also went missing during the search. The search team also went missing. The fog in the forest is too thick. They might have gotten separated. It's only been 2 or 3 hours. We can't be sure if they got lost or ran into danger, David said. Are you going to interfere with this case? One of my students also went missing, Chun Zhao said. I hope he's already been killed. That's not an answer a teacher should give, David said. David said, also, the fact that you called me and asked about this case shows that you still care about your students. Ha! You seem to be mistaken. I'm only calling because I'm a teacher. It's not because I care about him. Just then another call came in. After saying goodbye to David, Chen Zhao picked up the second call. Mr. Leon, what's up? Mr. Chen, there's a case of many people going missing in Sandro National Park. Your association should pay attention. Chen Zhao raised an eyebrow. Is this a supernatural case? Sandro National Park operated for 20 years, but it suddenly closed 3 years ago. It only reopened recently. 3 years ago, there were a total of 35 disappearances in Sandro National Park. Until now, no one has found the missing people. The police couldn't find her at all. I can't find it. The search team has also gone missing many times during the search, so I suspect that this is a supernatural incident. Got it. I'll pay attention to this matter. Then, Chen Zhao hung up and went to the headquarters. Along the way, Chen Zhao asked West to gather everyone. After arriving at the association, everyone gathered in the conference hall. There's a missing person case in Sandro National Park. We can't be sure if it's a supernatural event right now. Everyone, prepare yourselves and bring search equipment. We'll head to the location and investigate. Chen Zhao looked at Klaus and the others. You guys join in too. Yes, guild leader. Your weapons and equipment are of the highest level, Chen Zhao said. After all, Klaus and the others were normal people, so it was difficult for them to fight against supernatural powers. However, they were mercenaries, so they should be better at finding people. Guild leader, what about us? Panin asked. Of course you're going. Or do you not want to go? No, of course we want to go, Panin quickly said. Also, my beast form can make my sense of smell even sharper. When searching in the wild, the smell will disperse easily, Klaus said, unconvinced. Smell might not be able to find the target faster. How about we compete? Panin was also eager to show off. After all, as temporary members of the association, they were under a lot of pressure. In terms of internal members' attitudes, they were even worse than Klaus and the others. After all, Klaus and the others had joined the supernatural organization of their own accord. The three of them, on the other hand, had been forced to join the organization. So they really needed a sense of approval now. Chen, you're not going? I'll go too, Chen Zhao said. Split into 3 teams, but don't be too scattered. It's very foggy there, so we might encounter danger. I'll go alone. No one had any objections to this arrangement. It was reasonable for Chen Zhao to go alone. Whoever stayed with Chen Zhao would become a burden instead. Padalu and I made some communication equipment for you, Jalik said. You can communicate even when normal equipment is disrupted. Okay, bring the equipment. Let's go. What do you need? First, I need to know the environment of the corpse pit, Bona Twain said. Professor Fersil looked at Dog. Do you have a map of the area below? No, this laboratory was built very early on, and it was an underground laboratory in the early days. Later, the underground laboratory was abandoned, and another laboratory was built above it, which is the building we are standing on now. Later, after Professor Trek took over the laboratory, he reserved the entrance and threw the failed products into it, letting them fend for themselves inside. How big is it down there? More than 10 times the area of the building above, Dog said. So big? Why didn't he just destroy the monsters? Because Professor Treko conducted an experiment on species self-adaptation. He felt that the failed products didn't completely fail. Maybe in a special environment, they can improve themselves. How many failed products are down there? Many. Professor Treko's experiment is a species hybridization experiment. In other words, humans and beasts interbreed. But if he wants to build a complete ecosystem, he needs a large enough area and a natural circulation system. Just having living things isn't enough, right? Chapter 998. What is this God's flesh and blood? Professor Forzel was also interested in it. I don't know. It was sold to Professor Treko by a secret organization, Dog said. This God's flesh and blood can grow on its own if planted in the soil. It can also grow in the water. If thrown on the ground, it will also grow on its own. This thing is down there. When Professor Treko was here, an accident happened in the laboratory. An experimental body attacked Professor Treco and stole the god's flesh and blood. Then it escaped into the corpse pit. Professor Treco died soon after. Bring this thing out for me. Professor Forzel looked at Bona Twain. I need to rest first. I'm not in a good state right now. What Bona Twain needed the most now was time. She did not think that she would be able to come out alive after entering the dangerous corpse pit. Both of us need it, Bona Twain said. You have to change rooms for us. Dog, bring the two of them to another room. Also, keep an eye on them. The two of them finally escaped from the glass prison, and Dog took them to a suite. You can stay here. Right, there are condoms in the drawer. Dog sat down in the room. You can pretend that I don't exist. Bona Twain looked at Dog. She had originally planned to find a chance to escape. But with Dog here, they could not escape even if they wanted to. Dog had no intention of hiding and secretly monitoring them. Instead, he was openly monitoring the two of them. Why are you called Dog? Litgrove asked, puzzled. Dog. Because I'm loyal. Dog smiled at the two. I'm my master's loyal dog. I don't believe that you will remain loyal to the person who turned you into a monster, Bona Twain said. Maybe I can cure you with magic. I don't need to be cured. I'm very satisfied with my current state. Drug X is flowing in my body, giving me superhuman strength, speed, and brain activity. What is Drug X? Is it the drug that Professor Forzel researched? Drug X has nothing to do with Professor Forzel. Drug X was developed by my boss's laboratory, and my boss funded Professor Forzel to obtain his experimental data to perfect Drug X. If I help you get Professor Forzel's research data, will you let us go? Bona Twain asked. I've tried, but to no avail. Just because you can't find it doesn't mean I can't. After all, I'm a witch. I have a way to make him talk and hand over his experimental data, said Bona Twain. Dog laughed. Bona Twain wanted them to fight among themselves. Of course, if necessary, Dog did not mind using Bona Twain to get the information he needed from Professor Forzel. However, things had not reached that stage yet. If it was possible, Dog did not want things to turn out that way. After all, if he could easily complete the task given to him by his superiors, he hoped that it would be easy, not through risky and violent methods to obtain experimental data. Just then the big guy ran in from outside. Dog, there's another intruder approaching the security perimeter. It's not the first time. No need to be nervous, Dog said calmly. They're not ordinary people. The outer defense line seems to have been breached. Oh, they can breach the defense line? Are they from the military? Dog asked in surprise. Their weapons seem to be very powerful. The things we've set up outside can't stop them. The big guy picked up a tablet. There seems to be more than one group. There are people approaching from the left and right. Go and kill them all, Dog said indifferently. Okay. The big guy turned around and left. Klaus and his team formed a team with Gaia. Gaia was the strongest, so she would lead Klaus and his team. Plus, Gaia was also a veteran, so she was more familiar with the Lightning Squad's movements. The two sides complemented each other better. Slow down. Don't rush, Gaia said. I don't want Payne's team to beat us to it. He could feel the competitive relationship between Payne and the Lightning Squad. Of course, the Lightning Squad was also competitive with Payne, Eric, and Helith. They were good at different fields, but they were all eager to be recognized. The recognition of the members of the association, and Chen Zhao. That won't do, Gaia. You don't want Payne's team, or West's team to beat you to it, right? Klaus said. Plus, the president is acting alone. If he finds it first, we won't get anything. Gaia thought about it and agreed. If Chen Zhao took action, they really wouldn't get anything. Just then Gaia's feet sank. A hand reached out from the soft soil and grabbed her calf. Gaia lifted her foot, and a rotten corpse was pulled out from the soil. Bang! No need to thank me. Klaus blew the smoke off his gun. There are a lot of things hidden below. Be careful. Gaia looked ahead. A large area was made of the same soil. No one knew how many moving corpses were hidden below. Klaus took out a box and tossed it forward. Liquid spewed out of the box. The next moment, the box burst into flames and so did the liquid. The corpses hiding underground all crawled up. They didn't feel pain, but because of the temperature difference, The flames made them feel the temperature difference. The corpses wobbled toward the group. However, the corpses didn't pose much of a threat to them. A team member held a submachine gun. After a series of shots, the corpses all fell to the ground. Other than disgusting people, what else can these things do? Of course not, Gaia said. They're mainly used to defend against normal people. If they step here and get pulled into the soft soil, they'll probably die. Suddenly, a figure descended from the sky and landed before them. Klaus and the others reacted instantly and pointed their guns at the person. However, the person flashed again and disappeared into the mist. Klaus felt a whistling sound coming from behind. "Oh no," he cried in his heart. Before he could react, he heard another clang. Turning around, he saw Gaia holding her sword horizontally, blocking the fatal attack for him. Chapter 999. The big guy looked at Gaia in surprise. Then the big guy swung his fist at Gaia. Whoosh! The big guy's arm flew into the air. Gaia's greatsword didn't stop. The blade slashed at the big guy's neck. The big guy instinctively lowered his head, but a piece of his scalp was still sliced off. The big guy staggered back a few steps and touched the blood on his scalp. His eyes were filled with horror. Then the big guy turned and ran. He had no choice but to run. Gaia was really too fierce. Just one move almost took his life. He runs really fast. The big guy covered his arm and ran away frantically. But after a few steps, he realized that there were still people in front of him. It was obvious that these people were a family that came here to play. The big guy dashed towards the few of them. The enemy is here. Seeing the big guy charging over aggressively, West immediately released his slow field. The big guy realized that his body had become sluggish. Then a young man charged at him. The big guy raised his fist and smashed it on the young man's head. The young man's head exploded with a bang. But the next moment his body also exploded violently. The big guy was less than 50 centimeters away from the center of the explosion. The violent explosion sent him flying. However, his body was simply too tough. Even in the face of such an impact, it still couldn't kill him. The big guy ran away again. These people were too crazy. A kid actually self-destructed. The big guy ran back to the lab. He was already heavily injured. Dog was chatting with Lit Grove and Bona Twain when the big guy barged in. However, the big guy was already very weak. He fell to the ground as soon as he entered the room. Dog was also shocked when he saw the big guy. "Belle, what's wrong with you?" One was a dog, the other was a bear. But looking at the big guy's size, he looked like a bear. "There's a group of ruthless people outside. Let's go. It'll be too late if we don't leave now." With that, Belle spat out a mouthful of blood. Dog looked at Belle on the ground, his eyes flickering. Belle's injuries were too serious. His head drooped. No one knew if he was unconscious or dead. "Your friend is injured. Aren't you going to help him?" Lit Grove and Bona Twain couldn't help but say when they saw that Dog was indifferent. At this moment, Professor Fossil hurried in from outside. "Our line of defense has been breached. Didn't you say that no one could enter this laboratory? How did this happen?" "What I'm saying is, if it's just the rescue team or the police, it's impossible for them to make it here alive," Dog said. "But if it's the military, then there's nothing we can do. After all, we can't fight against the military. The surveillance shows that they are not from the military. They seem to have special abilities." "Special ability? Just like her," Fossil said, pointing at Bona Twain. Dog looked at Bona Twain. "What do you know? Or do you know them?" "I don't know. I don't know anyone in LA. I've only been in LA for less than 10 days, Bona Twain explained. However, from what Professor Fossil said, it seemed that this person wasn't an ordinary person. It was very likely that he was a spiritualist like her, and not an ordinary one at that. This raised hope in Bona Twain's heart. "Professor Fossil, it's not safe to stay here for long. Pack your things, and let's leave here first. Then we'll find you a laboratory to continue your research." But Fossil quite liked this place, and there was something special in the corpse pit. If he gave up here, then he would miss the thing in the corpse pit. "If you're caught by those people, you won't be able to continue your research," Dog advised. "Okay then," Professor Fossil replied reluctantly. "Wait. Do what?" Open the passage to the corpse pit. Dog was impressed by Professor Fazl's idea. Help me. Belle, who was on the ground, said weakly. Professor Fazl looked at Belle, and then at Dog. Are you going to save him? Dog shook his head. He's just a burden now. Professor Fazl dragged Belle's body out, and returned to the room a few minutes later. Did you get rid of him? Dog asked. I threw him into the corpse pit. Can we go now? What about the two of them? Dog pointed at Lit Grove and Bona Twain. Bring them, Fazl said. They're still valuable. If we encounter those people, we can use them as hostages. Also, this girl is very special. I want to study her. Bona Lit, let's go. Dog smiled at the two. Fuck, I shouldn't be alone. I should be with them. I can't tell north from south at all. Chen Zhao ran around in the fog. He was completely lost. Hey, there's a building up ahead. Chen Zhao immediately sped up. Hello, sir. What can I do for you? Chen Zhao ran to a restaurant in the shopping area of the park. After walking for half a day, he actually walked out of the forest. Chen Zhao didn't know how to face it. Grilled crayfish, braised beef. Chen Zhao ordered many dishes. The waiter looked at him. Sir, are you alone? Yes, alone. Let me confirm with you the dishes you've ordered. That's right. Come up, Chen Zhao said. After the waiter left, Chen Zhao took out his phone. Hey Gaia, how are you and Klaus? We haven't found their hiding place yet. We're moving forward now, but it should be soon, Gaia said. How are you? Did you find it? Just then, the waiter placed a plate of grilled crayfish on the table. Sir, please enjoy. I'm fighting now. The monsters are very strong. Chen Zhao let go of the phone and continued. You guys be careful too. I know. Don't kill all the monsters. Leave some for us, Gaia said. Klaus, we have to hurry. Chen's already one step ahead of us. Chen Zhao then called Pan Un. Pan Un, how are you guys? President, we were attacked by monsters. Are there any casualties? No, we can handle it for now. President, how's your side? I'm fighting monsters too. If you can't beat them, retreat in time or send your coordinates to me. I'll go get you. Guild leader, we are capable of defeating these demonic creatures, Pan Un said resolutely. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.